Okay, everyone, the clock is ticking, and so I will call this meeting to order. DeKalb County Commissioners, and the date is January 17th, 2023. Good morning, all. Dottie, you have anything for us this morning? You're just waiting on Apex.
Well, we need to get.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because I didn't technically schedule her today,
right.
so.
Bob, what you got? Mic on. Mic on.
Morning.
There you go.
Out at Sunny Meadows, we're needing a water heater.
And I went out and looked at it. It had been dripping just a little bit, but now it's running, like the water's actually running out of the rusted crack in the bottom of the water heater. It's ready to let go altogether. So the reason I'm trying to push this pretty quickly is because I've had the exact same experience 6 months ago at my house. It blew right off the side, flooded my basement, had no hot water. So knowing on these big hot water heaters that can take a few days, I don't want residents to be without hot water and be in an emergency situation where we have to figure out lodging or something crazy like that, the residents. So Angela got first proposal from Auburn Heating and Air Conditioning for $11,840. It's a big 100-gallon commercial water heater. I said we had to get some more quotes, so I got one from WMI. He found one, the exact same unit, exactly the same, for $10,755. In the meantime, we talked to Mike. I called him right away saying, hey, this is an issue. We got to try and get in front of you guys. He called back to Auburn Heating and Air Conditioning, and they came up with a non-commercial one that they can do for still 100-gallon. The difference is the BTUs. The BTU on the commercial one is 100, it can't be right. It's 199,000, and the non-commercial is 80,000. So I can imagine that's, I think it's 199,000 or 99,000.
No, it's 109. No, it's 199.
So this is less than half as much BTUs. Okay.
Yeah, it's a monster.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so, and we also called Pranger, never got a quote back. Kind of
How much was the non-commercial?
7,800.
7,800.
And we know, our issue was, my issue is not knowing future of the facility and, what, they didn't want to put a lot of money in it. So Mike and I are trying to figure out the cheapest way to do it. We might be able to get them to do something even a little cheaper, because our thought was just get two smaller residentials and tie them together. But he has a single one here for 100 gallons. That's a residential.
Is it just a single unit, right? It's just still a round unit,
Still
right?
this big.
100 gallons.
Yeah, it's a large one.
100 gallon.
I'm just
What I
wondering.
could tell on the stickers, it looks like it's about 20. So I think I found a 2001, but I wasn't sure whether that was, when we see those numbers, top grade, that's what it's actually. It's an older.
The reason I ask here on, I buy all my stuff off this water heater site when I want it. And they have 100-gallon, 199,000 BTU for $39.99 delivered. Surely it can't cost more than 4 or 5 hours to install it,
Does
can
that
it?
break out labor on the quote?
Yes.
What's the labor charge?
Oh, no, it doesn't. That's all included.
This is
Sorry.
included.
Okay.
5 hours at $100 an hour or so, 150 an hour, and $4,000 delivered. I don't know. That saves $2-3 grand.
I do the same thing, Todd. I thought on the low end we could get one for around 4,000. I looked at range, all kinds of just everything on the website, but I searched for a commercial 100-gallon water heater. Was for you can't pay 10,000 for one, but just for the water heater, but you can also pay 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And it's not untypical. Guys double whatever the part is, double it.
Well, and they're busy, so they can make their money. It's understandable. Even Home Depot's got them.
I think if you could take two 80s and hook them in
A couple of
series.
80s for 12,
Yeah, that'd be
1,200 feet.
Yeah, 12.
I,
yeah, about
I just
1,200.
put in a 75-gallon electric, non-metallic, super efficient. There's no metal in it for conduction, and I think $1,200.
These
the
are
thing
gas.
is-
Probably have to stick with
Yeah,
gas.
yeah, you'd want to stick with gas, but,
For
yeah,
recovery.
right, you gotta stick with
yeah, you could
gas.
surely find some gas ones too. You could probably put a pair
Oh,
of
yeah.
gas ones together, but then you have more plumbing.
Yeah, that's
But-
what the W.
Yeah, but you still got to be somewhere closer to 5,000.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I just think that's too much money.
So I guess, maybe so we can get this moving ahead so we don't have to wait a long time, can we, and the other issue was, we're trying to figure out where we're gonna pay for that from. She just had a dishwasher go bad that we had a little money in cum cap that she pulled that from. She's gonna pay that $5,000 for the dishwasher. We were hoping that maybe we could use some of that ARPA money that you put aside for Sunny Meadows to do this. I don't know if that's a possibility or not. And if we could, set a cap at 7,800 or something, and then try to find somebody that can do the labor cheaper. I don't know who we get besides Auburn Heating. If you guys have suggestions of who else.
I think Auburn Heating would do a good job of installing it. They're, like I said, 100, 150 bucks an hour. It can't be more than, I mean, if it's just, should just be water in, water out, shouldn't have any electric hooked to it. It's gas, correct?
Right.
So,
Will they install
oh, yeah.
even if it's not their
yeah.
unit?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, I'm just asking.
Yeah, they've done it for me before. They've installed my product, but I think what we ought to do is approve up to $5 or $6 grand maybe. I mean, if they can be had for $4 grand, the labor I don't think can be much more than 1,000 at the most.
No, can be.
I mean, I'm thinking
No.
500 even would do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I think we could easily
Cap
approve
at 5.
$5 grand for now, and if you
Yeah,
run
let's-
into a
let's cap it
stumbling
at
block,
5.
call us. But just do a Google search, 100 gallon, 199,000 BTU. I got a bunch of them that came up for $4 grand
I did
delivered.
too.
Yeah, well, I would suggest that maybe you call Cody, or I
Yeah.
can do it this afternoon, just to ask them if they will install a heater bought somewhere else in a timely manner, because a lot of times those projects go clear to the end of the line. And secondly, ask them about hooking two in series, just so we've got,
I don't know
yeah, I know, I can do
who
it.
to talk.
Yeah, sure,
I can give you his phone number if you like, or you do want to call him?
I can call.
Okay.
But I don't, there's no issue with using it, the ARPA money to do that. That's all set for the Sunny Meadows operation as far as building and facilities and
If it
evaluations.
comes in any more than 5,000, can she use some repair and maintenance funds or something, or she need to come back to you and try to ask for more ARPA? Can she make up the difference, or do we need to come back next?
Well, I hate to take any more out of her budget. That's already kind of janky anyway. So I would suggest that that you come back and we'll just go back to the ARPA fund.
So do you want to do a consensus, or do you want to do a motion not to exceed X amount of dollars to be paid from the ARPA fund?
We can do a motion. And, yeah, let's do a motion.
I'd make a motion that we allow up to 5,000 for new water heater at Sunny Meadows with the payment coming from ARPA funds.
Second.
A motion and second. Additional comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed, same. Motion carries.
By the way, you can get two 75 gallons for 1,300 each delivered. That'd be 2,600. You have a little more labor, but now those would only be 80,000 BTU, but a pair of them would
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
least have a lot more
Well, it
potential energy stored.
doubles your, or gives you 50% more capacity.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
which kind of compensates for the lower recovery.
And if you have one go down, the other one can still heat too, which is, but then again, you have the chance of two of them fail now instead of one.
Yeah, but at the same time, probably not very likely.
No, they'll last
Right.
10, 15 years easily.
Yeah.
That's going to outlast the building.
Outlast me for sure.
One other thing I wanted to mention, I'm appreciative that Angela taking the job of being out there. I think she's got some good abilities to make some good changes. We're trying to tread lightly so we don't offend a whole bunch of people that work there and stuff, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of cleanup and stuff that needs to be done.
Oh,
there,
yeah.
So we're looking at those things. But one of the biggest factors that we've talked about, both the council and the commissioners over the last year, has been the meds. We've talked about that with the insurance. So she's got one quote already to approach the med situation, and I think we'll go to the council for an addition. Farmer Care will do prepackage all the meds for all the residents, $1,025 per person per month.
Yes.
So we're going to get another quote before the council meeting. We're going to ask because that's what's happening right now. Is not.
Yeah. Does pre-packaging also help us with the liability of actually dispensing it?
Yes,
It does, okay, all right,
That'd take us
it
off
would
the
be
hook.
okay.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if, since you're still handing it to them, if that was a problem.
Well, yeah, and there's a couple other policies she's changing
Okay.
with some other, non-drive medications that just were kind of open to anybody to come and take.
Definitely. Getting everything on a lock cabinet. Only 1 days of medication out at one time.
Good,
Definitely.
makes sense.
I just wanted you guys to know that because she picked up on it right away. Said we got to fix this right now, and I was like, yes, please.
All right.
So, all righty.
Good deal,
Angela?
thank you.
Thank you.
Angela,
Thanks,
Yes.
Angela.
can you email me the names and the values of those quotes, please?
Yes,
I can-
definitely. And
so
I
I-
will, I'm working on getting a
Include
couple
it.
more.
That's fine. Well, I want those so for my minutes. I couldn't keep up with them.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
She's talking about that.
Oh, the hot water.
Yes, the hot
I
water
will get
quotes.
those
Yes,
to
yes,
you.
yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, thanks.
Okay. Let's go into the minutes, get the minutes cleaned up and the travel. Motion, you guys, any comments or corrections on the minutes?
I'll move to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion second to approve minutes, additional comments. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same. Minutes are approved. Travel.
Didn't read them.
Didn't read them?
I'll move to approve them then, because I did.
I'll second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Same. Travel is approved. What is the
You want to do those
claims?
little, yeah. I don't think I had it on there because I didn't know.
Motion to approve claims?
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion second to approve claims and additional comments. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same. Motion carries.
Who made that motion?
Got already.
I know, I looked at you and you didn't say anything.
Okay. No before discussion. What we got there, Susan?
Well, oh, thanks. Point finger at me. IT is requesting that we at least discuss making the know before training exercises that come out every month mandatory. The potential problems and the state of our cyber insurance. We just had a meeting with Kyle, insurance trustees, over the cyber insurance renewal. They're getting more and more stringent on those requirements. Jack sent me a spreadsheet with kind of a report on all the participation and bad links that are still getting clicked on and some things like that. It's not pretty. And it's only a matter of time. We've already had a couple of breaches that were manageable, but it's only a matter of time before something pretty drastic happens. Those, other than the initial training, which is probably longer than it really needs to be, most of these ones that come every month take 2 or 3 minutes at the most. But if it keeps somebody from clicking on the wrong thing or answering an email or getting fooled into doing something because they think that the email came from somebody that it didn't, I think it's a good investment to make that a mandatory.
It might come to the point where we can't even get insurance if we don't have this put in
Well, that's
place
true.
because of this, the
They
cyber won't
said,
cover
Kyle said
us.
there are only a couple of carriers now that would, that have that kind of a broad enough
Yeah. Coverage part.
coverage policy that, that what we're doing right now would even be able to get covered, so.
I'll have to say, I can be kind of lackadaisical on this. And I do the training, and what I like about it does remind me every month to be on the ball. It kind of refreshes my resistance to click on anything that's not, I shouldn't be clicking on. So to me, it helps. I don't know. I think it's probably, I guess I'd be in favor of doing it.
There's several of the department heads already make it mandatory for their departments. But I think it, like I said, I think it's wise if we just do it as a countywide or a system-wide requirement.
Would we
Thoughts, Todd?
need that in a ordinance or resolution or something? If you guys do it.
I don't know if it'd have to be an ordinance, it's more like a personnel policy.
Okay.
So it could be a resolution for a personnel policy.
Something that could be maybe included in the handbook.
Handbook, yeah, I think that would be
Yeah,
probably a
Just do like
logical.
a handbook amendment.
yeah, a handbook amendment.
You know, the thing I found most, the easiest way to combat this, and I get the point, you know, insurance company, but pick up the phone and call someone if you're not sure about an email.
Well,
And
and
that's what I,
that's stressed over and over in the
Yeah.
training. But
That's
there
what we-
again, we tend to get into a rut or,
yeah, I won't click on anything to open it, and then, you know, or if someone calls and says, hey, my payroll changed, send my check to here, well, there's certain common sense things that just,
right.
you know, but I get the point, I mean,
Unfortunately,
They're getting pretty-
those things are still happening.
I know.
That's a problem.
and I deal with it every day, I suppose if you don't deal with it every day, but I can spot a bad, those no befores, I know, whenever they come, they spell DeKalb wrong or something like that, and I'm like, come on, guys.
And the
this
crooks
is-
are very creative, and they're coming up with new ways all the time to tempt you.
Yeah,
And the know before, it kind of keeps us up to date on that. It would explain, the next
Yeah.
philosophy that they have.
They get more and more sophisticated
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
time, and they're in the spoofing and so forth.
yeah.
A couple things that I would like to bring out about that know before, because I'm very involved in that because of new hires. But we have some, I would say, I don't want to say resistant, but from certain departments who feel that they are state employees, that their employees do not have to take these trainings. We also have people who are not employees who have access to our system. They actually work, as a consultant or whatever, and they come and they work within a certain department. So there are those instances where you may have to be a little more, the wording of the resolution might have to be a little different than what just an employee handbook insertion. These are more the system operators, anyone who has access to our system. And that, when we have certain individuals, they have a DeKalb County email address. So there are those instances. So anyway, those are a couple situations that you may need to consider.
Okay.
I will say this thing came out at our latest legal seminar as well, as they are starting to have a cybersecurity part of our legal seminars for yearly updates. And they mentioned that one of the Court of Appeals judges was on a committee to do something with some other judges, like 5 members, and there was a phishing done on one of the members to pretend to be an email from that committee, which was pretty particular and direct, which surprised me.
I think, we'll go on a limb here a little bit. I think that we will be able to get cooperation from the departments that are linked to the state. I'm pretty confident of that. The outside vendors that log into the system, those are like Lao, and who logs into our system as an outside vendor to do stuff?
Lau does in our office. I'm sure that there's somebody with Odyssey probably, and maybe child support with clerk's office. And the assessor's office has their Nexus group that could get into it.
I would hazard a guess that most of those vendors who log into other people's systems regularly have some kind of an agreement or some sort of a policy. Maybe we should talk to insurance trustees from the insurance side of things to see if they have some suggested policy with them. That's something we want to cover for sure.
Recorder's office has somebody, and also Xsoft is part of assessor.
Yeah, okay.
My little birdie's typing to me.
What do you think about this amending the handbook? Then I think it's a good way to go, a start anyway. That gives us a little bit more leverage on the departments, I would think. If there are some departments that are reluctant to require this.
I agree.
But I'm not sure how that works out.
Should we maybe talk to insurance trustees first about the outside vendors before deciding what kind of avenue to put together?
Yeah, probably. Let's do that. I think it's inevitable that we'll have to do something. It's just too many crooks out there, and one way or another, they're going to keep at it. And they're not going to stop or slow
Except for
down.
the crooks work for no before, so they set us up.
Now, Todd.
I'm telling you, the people that write the antivirus software write the viruses too.
Yeah, it makes you wonder about job creation.
Yeah.
What's the definition of job
Job
creation?
security.
Sometimes is kind of questionable. Okay, we are at the 9 o'clock hour, it looks like. So Apex, you are up. And Dottie, you want to grab a mic too while we're at it?
You have a thumb drive and all that?
How you doing, Bill?
Thank you.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So we had a PowerPoint prepared. We had a demo. We can demo this product that we're going to show you. But we have the fallback paper paper edition of what we're going to talk about. So the last time we spoke, and if you flip to the second page there with on the top where it says an idea. The last time we spoke, you guys had talked about, you seemed very interested in a self-funded plan that had no deductibles, no co-insurance after the deductible. It simply had a copay where the cost of a procedure was split between the employee and the county, right? An out-of-pocket max that limits the employee's responsibility. You had an idea about including wellness or smokers paying a higher rate or a higher copay, for instance. Some of the reasons you liked this was it was less complicated, less confusing. It makes employees have skin in the game, right? You had an idea about putting a cushion in for future years and rewarding members if you have a good year, right?
Right.
Anything else I'm leaving out of that? I mean, that's kind of what you want, that's kind of what you were looking at and kind of what you were going toward, right?
I think that pretty much completes it, and of course, stopgap for,
Right. So, yeah, you have stop loss insurance that caps the county's liability, right?
right.
So, we asked several insurance companies to see if anyone was doing this. Well, as soon as we left, we got on the phone and we were calling carriers to see who had anything like this at their disposal. We asked our friends at United Healthcare, and they're doing this. So they're still doing the traditional plan designs, but they're also doing a form of this. They, like you, also think that the current system is too complicated, right? There's a lack of transparency in pricing, and the HSA plans that were designed so that members had skin in the game really aren't working. What happens is the deductibles keep going up, right? You have to contribute to the HSA so that it makes it more affordable for employees. So the whole thing just keeps, it's not really working. So there was a third-party administrator, a TPA, that had been doing this since 2017 in selected states. United Healthcare bought that company and has been expanding what they're doing with this. The program uses the United Healthcare Choice Plus network. So United Healthcare's Choice Plus network is one of the two largest networks in the country, right? Parkview and Lutheran and all of the local hospitals are in it. It's got probably one of the two, along with Anthem, probably one of the two deepest discounted networks throughout the country. It's not a narrow network. The third-party administrator that is used for this, or the TPA that's used for this, is called Surest. The pharmacy can run either through Optum or Navitas. Optum is one of the largest PBMs in the country. Navitas allows you to use the patient assistance programs that we've talked about repeatedly, or we talked about a lot the last time we were here. There's no deductible. There's no co-insurance. There are clear upfront costs. People can see their costs in advance. They can compare their options. So we wanted to be able to demo this, and we can't. We can show you how to demo it, but there's an app for this on your phone. You can get on the website, and it will compare the prices at all of the different doctors' offices, hospitals, care providers in the area. They can choose, so basically employees can choose the option or the care path that fits their needs. Members pay less for a higher value treatment and providers. So it's designed for employees with low to moderate incomes, so it kind of fits in the county space a little bit. We plan to introduce this to our 17 county clients because we really think after looking at this, it's a great idea and a great fit for counties. Currently, there are almost 400,000 members, right? There's about 400,000 members nationwide that are on this plan. There are over 60,000 lives in Indiana.
6,000.
Was that right? Six? There's over 6,000 lives, sorry, in Indiana. The companies that are on it, and I didn't put this slide in there, Target, Best Buy, Culligan Water, United Healthcare also uses this. So when United Healthcare took this over 2 years ago, when they bought this TPA 2 years ago, they planned on rolling this thing out in a huge way in 2023. So with that, the next page says lower costs for employees and members year after year. This plan, on average, in the last 2 years, has saved the employers 14% on their bottom line cost. So compared to a traditional plan that's got the deductible, out-of-pocket, or the co-insurance and all that, on average, this plan has saved the employers 14%, and on average, it has saved the employees 46% or almost 50% in total, in their total bottom line cost too. So it is proven. It has worked. So on the next page, some of these are paginated and some of them are not, but it's the fourth page, the surest design. So as I said before, so this is an example of this surest has several different plan designs, okay? And this is just a sample of what one would look like, and we actually have some that they worked up that are comparable to the county's plan as well, which we'll share with you. So if you look at the plan design here, again, DeKalb would use the United Healthcare Choice Plus network. Surest would be the third-party administrator. Navitas would be your pharmacy benefit manager, or PBM. You can use the clinic. You can share the clinic with the city and the schools if you like, right? You choose a plan design from one of many that are offered. You have no deductible, no co-insurance, free preventative health care, or free preventative care, a copay that shares the cost of the care between a member and the county. Members have an out-of-pocket max. Members are able to see their cost before they go and get anything done. The copay cost is determined by the value of the care. The value of care includes quality and cost. So members may choose where to go for care and know the cost beforehand. They're not locked into a particular healthcare provider. So a lot of these plans where you have an app that you can go and figure out where you're going, a lot of them are locked into a specific network. So you're not locked into Parkview's network where Parkview tells you where to go. You're not locked into Lutheran's network where Lutheran tells you where to go for care. It's based on the quality of care, and it's based on the price of that care as well, okay? There's no direct contracting. You can go wherever you want to go for service, and you'll be rewarded for choosing the higher quality care provider who is efficient and doesn't overcharge. The thought here is that one hospital system doesn't rule the roost, right? So if you look at page 4 there, you'll notice that some of the options have, like if you go down 5 lines to office visit, primary care physician, and specialist. There is a range for the employee's copay, $20 to $90, right? Mm-hmm. So that's where you get on the app, it shows you a map of where all of the in-network care providers are, and it'll say, your copay to go here is $20, your copay to go here is $40, $60, $80, up to $90, and they get to choose. So let's say Todd and Mike both have two different physicians, and Mike's going to a doctor and it's costing him $20, and Todd's going, my doctor's cost. You get on the app and you find out where the lower copay is, and you don't have to do that. You can go to the one you want to go, but you're going to pay a little bit higher, or you can go to the one that Mike goes to that's $20.
How did they determine that rate of copay? Do they have some type of pricing matrix that they're trying to buy business? In other words, it sounds to me like they maybe makes them be competitive to buy business that way, to have lower copay, or?
Well, it's a good question, but think of it as, think of it, let's say you're a surgeon. Let's say you're looking to have a surgery done. Okay. So United Healthcare has a history of many, many years of how many people have gone to, let's say, this particular surgeon, and what's the cost, and then to figure out the quality. How many people have had to go back time and time again, because something was done wrong, or because they got an infection, or because, so they look at the efficiency and how many times you have to go back, and how many times there are complications, or how many times, you know what I mean? Okay. But I think the cost of care is a big part too. If in a perfect world, if things are equal and this person is less expensive than that person, the lowest price wins, right? Does that make sense? Okay, so the other thing you notice on that page 4, preventative is free. Urgent care is $50, emergency room is $400, so you're incentivized to go to urgent care rather than go to the emergency room, okay? Maternity. So this is a big thing too. So with maternity, everything that's included in having a baby is included in that $900 price tag, or that $1,700 price tag. So unless there's anything way off the radar, so when you get into the app, it'll say maternity. This, all of these different things are included in that, right? Imaging. So $100 to $725. You're only going to you're only going to get imaging when a hospital or a doctor tells you go get imaging. If you're at the hospital and they say just go down the hall and set up a time, right? You don't think about it.
Right.
So you get on the app, you find out that's $725. But if you go 2 blocks away to the the standalone facility, it's $100. So you don't have to go to the $100 one, but you're going to be incentivized to do so, right? What else? Physical.
Bill?
Yes.
On imaging.
Yes.
The way that it is currently, the insurance company says that, okay, the doctor orders an MRI, and if you go to a standalone facility, we will pay for that, but we won't pay for one in hospital, unless, of course, it's, there are a bunch of criteria there. But the standalones, oh, I'm sorry, but the doctor doesn't like the open MRI. So the patient then ends up having to go someplace else and pay even more for an MRI. Is there any of that in this scenario?
I think I'm understanding what you're saying. Why would a doctor say we're not taking this MRI?
They don't like, historically, doctors do not like open MRI results because they say that it doesn't drill down, it's not as clear, it's not as defined as one of the other MRI facilities. Well, much like the one, at our hospital where I get a piece of the pie. And so we end up with those scenarios from time to time. And not just with,
I've had that.
my current life, but in other traditional insurances.
And I think sometimes it depends on what their extra MRI, and like when I had my sarcoma cancer, I could not do an open view MRI. I had to do the regular one because the doctor would not accept the open view. It was, I mean,
Well, I think on the app you can search specifically for open MRI or whatever the normal one is. I mean, I think hopefully we can demo the website where you just go in and look, and maybe we can look for that.
Well, and
I was just giving you an example of
Yeah,
what.
So,
getting into customer preference there then too, like with cancer, obviously, pay an extra $500, I'll write the check. Make sure it's
Exactly.
taken care of. Hey, my back hurts, and give me the cheaper open MRI, and if the doctor won't read it, I'll find a different doctor to read that. But again, that comes to customer choice or employee choice at that point. You choose your expense, right? So maybe choose a
Very
new
much
doctor
so.
if they won't take the open.
so like to answer your question directly, I would say that probably could happen, but there are, and we've only been able to get on this app thing for about a week here, so I haven't looked at open MRI, closed, I don't know yet, but I would say at least you have a tool available that you could potentially search, or could cause you to ask questions of your physician, like, is this the only place I can go? Because it's costing me $750 to go here. You know what I mean? There's at least a tool that can help guide you through that conversation with your physician, right? So continue on with this page 4, because I think this is a pretty good page here. Prescription drugs down at the bottom, the different tiers. Okay, the first tier 1, there's a range of $10 to $20. So you get on the app and you can say, okay, for $10 I can get this prescription here. For $20, I go to, it's basically going to be CVS and Walgreens that are the more expensive option. Can you still use the other things that you've used in the past, the GoodRx or whatever? Yes. For the higher cost specialty meds, we still have these programs that are available through the pharmacy benefit manager to help cut costs or even alleviate the cost of specialty meds. Next page, very simply, we've talked about it, the app. The app is it can be online, it can be on your phone, it can be through a computer. It's very easy to use. I hope we get to demo this. It's really easy to use, and it tells you the upfront transparent pricing, the quality of care rating, whether it's in network or out of network, and the location. It gives you a lot of good information. Anything, Shauna? So the next page, and it's the little white page there isn't very clear, but the important thing I think of this is, so there's bundled pricing. Prices can be grouped together so members pay one price for labs. For example, you go to the doctor's office, right? And included in that bundled pricing for a doctor's visit would be any type of basic labs, x-rays, health services, anything that's included in that doctor visit is included in that copay. So in other words, you're not going to get a copay and then pay the copay and then have to pay extra for other services. The next page, which is not listed, but says at the top, it's a white page that says there's more to the equation than meets the eye. So these plans are designed so that let's say it's a $5,000. So the example we've used so far, a $5,000 out-of-pocket max. One event is not going to trigger the out-of-pocket max to be hit, right? All of these services, all of these copays are underneath or under less than the actual out-of-pocket max, so that it takes several different events throughout the course of a year before you hit your out-of-pocket max. You don't have one event and then it's like, okay, I don't care about pricing anymore. So for example, if you do this correctly, if you have a baby, anything that's included in having a baby is going to cost you $900. You still have, $4,100 till you hit your out-of-pocket max. The office visit, another $15. You have an MRI. Anything that's MRI related with that MRI, it's $100 if you go to the right place. Knee surgery, $1,250. So all in, you've had all of these events that could happen in the course of a year, and you're still about half of what your deductible is. And so that's by design. So on the next blue page, members register and engage with Surest. So 80% of, throughout the course of the last 2 years since United Healthcare has taken this over, 80% of the members that are on this plan register for it, right?
Register for the app.
For the app. They sign up for the app, right? 57% of the time, members actually use the app, okay? That's a little bit misleading because the people that are using the app, generally they go on at one time to see who their physician is, how much it's going to cost them to go to the doctor, and they don't have any other issues, so they don't use it again. 84% of the time, 84% of the time, people use it before they have a surgery, right? So the bigger cost things, they're actually using it to help control their costs. The next page, the emergency room, emergency, where am I? Lost my page here on this. Let's see.
Their options.
Care options. Since United Healthcare has been doing this, emergency room visits are down 6% below benchmark or 6% below normal deductible plan. Urgent care, it's 9% below the benchmark, and virtual visits, because it's so easy and it's on the app that they're already using, virtual visits are up more than 10%. The next page, inpatient hospital surgery. There are 23% lower than benchmark inpatient hospital surgeries. The cost is 20% less per surgery. Outpatient, there are 4% lower outpatient hospital surgeries than the benchmark, and 16% less of cost per surgery. Ambulatory surgical center surgery, I don't even know what that is, but ambulatory surgical centers are facilities, not hospitals, not related to an ambulance, but they are, go ahead. They are centers that can do surgeries that are not in a hospital. They're just a standalone type facility.
Yeah, there's one next to DuPont. I drove by it, DuPont Hospital, or what, Lutheran North, or whatever they call it now, and it said ambulatory surgery. I'm like, what's ambulatory?
Yes.
Just outpatient.
Yeah, like walk in, walk out.
Walk in, walk out.
All right.
Same day.
So like
Yes.
Star Trek, where they take the thing and just go over your body. And,
Little tricorder, yeah.
good, tricorder reading.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, though there's 2% lower of these, I don't know why. I think that would be a good thing. But the benchmark, it's 46% less per surgery when you use this plan. Therapy utilization, more people are going to therapy. The utilization is 4% higher and 14% less cost per visit. So all in, what these slides are really looking at is we have the ability to shift people's behavior. People will base their recovery settings on this question: would you rather go home after surgery or stay in the hospital? So that's why people, rather than inpatient, if you look at the inpatient versus outpatient, and given a choice, people are more likely to do something as an outpatient surgery. Because we vary the copay, we see people choosing outpatient settings, which are more efficient for the plan, or we're able to able to avoid the surgery altogether as individuals choose less invasive, more cost-effective treatments like physical therapy or pain injections. Next and final page. When members know their options, they choose a higher value treatment, and providers, fewer than 6%, 6 out of 100, use the least effective methods or providers. Questions?
My first one is on really the page that starts out lower costs for employers. It says that it's 14% lower total. What type of plans did these companies have before, these employers have before, so that now it's 14% lower? Are they comparable to what we have? And then when they switch?
That's a very good question.
Why, thank you. I try.
So that's not exactly what this is saying. This is saying that if you have a $5,000 deductible plan like with this, with no copay, or I'm sorry, $5,000 out-of-pocket max, no copay, no co-insurance, and a $5,000 out-of-pocket max traditional plan with copay, with a deductible, without this app being able to show you where the better quality care providers are. United Healthcare, same network, United Healthcare, right? United Healthcare's stop loss will be 14% lower than with this type of plan than with a traditional plan. Does that make sense? So UHC will from the very beginning will give you a 14% lower stop loss rate than it will with a traditional plan. Members pay 46% lower out of pocket with this plan than having to meet their deductible, their co-insurance, and then.
That ratio between the employee and the employer, that could be adjusted by the different copay percentages, actually. I mean, you could make that so it was a higher savings for the county and a lower savings for the employee, or vice versa. It just depends on what the percentage might be on the different copays.
Yes, exactly. So I'm going to pass out a couple of things here. I'm going to pass out, they did some repricing based on your plan. And again, it's not
like a mirrored plan, but basically the same, what you have your deductible right now. And so they kind of repriced it if we had this plan, what it would be like for the county. And yeah, you have a PPO and a HSA, and this is basically getting rid of the HSA. You just have the one.
PPO.
So Sure's does have 14 different plans, options, where it would give you, the different out-of-pocket max. And so you can pick out of those, but these two are the ones that they gave us that were most comparable to you guys.
So, okay, so they modeled this. You have people that are on a high deductible plan and on a PPO. So these results or these differentials or these percentages are based on people that are leaving if you look at the high deductible plan first, the HDHP plan first, there's way too much information on this and some of it's redundant, but the simplest way to say it is the DeKalb County high deductible plan, to help reduce costs for both employers and employees, DeKalb County's, the cost to the county with this plan compared to the people that are on your high deductible plan is 12%, 12.8% less, would be 12.8% less. The DeKalb County employee out-of-pocket impact would be 18% less. Okay, on the next page, it says that exact same information, but it shows you what the deductible, or I'm sorry, what the out-of-pocket amounts are with this plan compared to the people that are on the HSA plan. And it gives you the ranges, like for an office visit, both primary care physician or specialist, the ranges from $25 to $125 for an individual. Urgent care, $70, emergency room, $700 copay. Just gives you a range of what it would be and the results that they think it would be toward the members and toward the county. The gentleman at Surest that we talked to said every time we've done one of these, they're very conservative about what the savings is going to be. He said, I've never done one of these and had the savings be less than we projected. So, second to last page. And these are just samples, so this is not really actually a true picture for DeKalb County, but so down at the bottom, a member sees a price range for an MRI between $150 and $555. The actual total cost range is between $700 and $2,200. If they choose the $700 amount, the member pays $150. The employer, or DeKalb County, pays $550. If the member chooses the higher cost example, right, the member pays $555. And it costs DeKalb County $1,645. On the people on the PPO plan, so the next little handout there, the employees that have chosen the PPO plan, the impact for moving to this for DeKalb County would be a 13% reduction in cost. For the employees, it would be a 14.8% reduction in cost, right? And then on the third page, it gives you again, compares the PPO plan to the modeled Surest plan that they have chosen.
Well, see, if you think about it, when you have the health savings account, you don't have a copay when you go to the doctor. Now, the doctor may charge, say, $250 for an office visit with the negotiated rate with whomever we were, either PHP or now Anthem. It could be maybe $125 that person with the HSA would pay. Now, if you were with the PPO, you would pay the copay, which would be $35. $25, whatever that is, the copay. So that's why there would be the differences between the reduction in the cost for the employee. Because with the health savings account, basically you only get the discount or the negotiated rate anywhere. The employee is paying out of their health savings account for those things. Todd, you know well. And so with our PPO plan, individuals have a copay with everything. With the HSA, you don't. So that might help think things through.
So a couple other things. You can, the gentleman we talked to, Andrew from Surest, United Healthcare can run this plan along, and have an HSA option that's a totally different plan. So you could run this alongside of an HSA plan. They said if you move to this, for the first year, you should just run with this to see what it looks like. But if at some point, if people are unhappy about not having an HSA plan, you can give them the option, right?
And one thing, if we were to just go with the PPO, the money that the employee has in their health savings account can be used toward the co-pays with this plan, because the health savings account is their money to be used for any sort of health care.
You can't tie a HSA to this because there's no deductible. So you don't have a high deductible, you just have a copay.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
So the other thing, like I know you guys have talked about the clinic a lot, right? So there's nothing that says you can't join the clinic with the city and the schools and even save additional money that way. 12 of our 17 counties use a clinic, and most of them share it with the school in a city, right? Or schools in a city or other businesses. You know, it doesn't have to be tied to a specific broker. Several employers with different brokers have used clinics, and there would be additional savings there, and there would be another advantage of, it's convenient and free meds and all of that. So, so the other thing on the one page dealing with wellness, so your idea about wellness and having a different copay amount for wellness versus non-wellness, or smoking versus non-smoking. The wellness would have to be a contribution differential rather than a copay differential. So you can still incentivize wellness, just has to be through a contribution. The other thing you talked about was not even having an employee contribution. You can do that if you want to. It's just going to cost you more money because you're paying the full freight, but you can do that if you want. Another thing we like to do is when a plan is running well, you don't necessarily, and you can build up somewhat of a reserve, right? Mm-hmm. We like to give premium holidays and not have an employee pay any contribution, let's say for a month or 2 pay periods or 2 months or whatever, because the plan's running well and you're giving back in the form of a premium holiday. What else? What else am I missing?
And back to the pharmacy too, and the pharmacy benefit manager, the one they have was no. Anyway, but you still get the rebates that come back to the county, and you still get those programs where you can get the discounts for the member, and they can get their drugs potentially for free or cheaper. So they still have that's part of this as well.
Mm-hmm. Questions, comments?
I like the idea of the app. Yeah, being able to.
I mean, I can show you on my phone.
Oh, I already did it. I logged in and created the account. And
Oh, okay.
then I found my doctor and what it's going to cost. So
Yeah, and it's easy. You don't even have to know, like, say it's some surgery that's called something weird. You can just put, having my knee replaced.
Yeah.
And then, it's just like, it's just so easy.
Gotti, you're going to have to call no before, though, and tell them password 1 exclamation point. It's not a secure password.
Yeah. In my previous work life, we had a plan. We were self-insured, so we could do things like this. We had a cost comparison that was put out by the insurance company with whom we were with. And then we added on to that something called Smart Shopper at the time. And we would take a look at an employee. This was all voluntary. An employee would say, I'm going to have a knee replacement. And we would take a look at the prices on that cost comparison, come up with some tiers, kind of a split. If the employee would go to the tier 1, which would have been, the best pricing and the best quality, we would offer the employee a rebate to incentivize them to go to that low-cost provider. If they went to the Tier 2, it was a little bit less of a rebate, and then the Tier 3, it was even less. Well, our first one was a knee replacement, and the cost between Parkview and DuPont hospitals, you know how far away they are. It was like a $10,000 difference. Parkview was higher. This employee's particular surgeon, orthopedic person, only went to DuPont the second Tuesday of every month. So the employee could save money, had to schedule out that surgery, but then that was also the top tier and got the biggest rebate back, and then that person was able to pay their physical therapy co-pays with that rebate that they had gotten. It was, once again, it was and it was to go to Lutheran, the DuPont hospital, as opposed to the high price spread. So that was one of the programs that we had to try to keep the costs down. Sure, we paid a little bit, but it was a percentage of what we were going to pay out anyway if the person went to the Parkview. So it was just a win-win-win. And once again, it was just voluntary. So
I do have a question. 2.3 million is what the initial statement said we should fund, and then increases COLA. What does that include? And does that include also what our reinsurance expense is? I assume we have to pay a company for the stop loss. Is that included in the 2.3 million contribution? How does that work?
Well, the 2.3 million number is what you guys threw out there. You put that together. Okay.
It's an upfront pot.
As a pot,
Right.
okay, so what are the other costs associated above our 2.3 million?
Well, it might not even be 2.3 million. It could be lower than that. It could be more than that. But that's
Gotta
why
Analyze all the
during,
claim history to come up with
yeah,
that
you got to
number,
go.
really.
You have to go get stop loss quotes. So what's
That's what I'm
included in
saying,
that?
just so there's,
Here's what's included in that. Admin costs, stop loss costs. I would
Okay.
put an organ transplant policy in place with this.
Yeah.
And then your estimated claims costs. So the stop loss carrier is going to give you an expected claims
I gotcha.
amount, right?
okay,
And then how you fund that, knowing that you still have a maximum claims liability, you can fund it somewhere between expected and maximum and
gotcha.
build up a reserve. So that $2.3 million is
Yeah.
make-believe.
I
which
just
you
wondered
know.
all it
Right.
encapsulated. So, because aren't we currently paying as a county, isn't our input around 1.6, 1.7? Susan, does that sound about right? Yeah, and I'm curious what the employees kick in currently.
I think it's more than that, but I'm not sure.
I'd like to know what the employees kick in and what we kick in to see what the,
Total bill.
because I'm more of the, we talk about benefits. I'm more of a benefit to say the insurance is included, unless you're a smoker and then you get to pay a whole bunch. But just saying, I know what it cost my dad. It cost him his life, and it cost the insurance company about $1 million before it was over. So, serious business, smoking. And I saw you put vape on there too. I think vape pens are,
Well, I think that was
they're just as
that
dangerous,
was
if not more
Dottie that put
dangerous.
that in there.
So,
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
coat your lungs full of oil.
So go back to the funding and the dollar amount and what the cost is. I think you go to market and you get quotes, and this is one of the quotes you get, but you also, I think you look at other options. But let's say this is what you land on, you're going to know what your all-in cost is going to be. You're going to know what the expected is. At that point, you look and say, okay, what's the contribution? What are the contributions going to look like? How much what can we afford to spend? How much can we afford not to have employees pay?
So when I estimated for the 23 planning, the health insurance, not including HSA contributions, for for you guys was $2,043,695. And then the employee portion for that part was $586,340.
That doesn't include the HSA payments of $1,200 that we make to each employee that
So
selects
we,
it, right? Oh, 1,200 for family, right?
so when I was estimating that, because we figure, I mean, we budget a little over 85,000 for HSA matches. If everybody matches, that's what it would be. In 2021, with the matches, there was just over 55,000 of that 85 that was spent.
So we're looking at a total outlay of
2.6.
2.6, 2.7 million. Interesting. So what you're saying is we would take this to bid, and like you said, you would, admin costs, stop loss, organ transplant coverage, all that, and see where the dollars lay, right?
Yeah, and if you're considering the clinic, you gotta look at clinic costs too. The HSA goes away, so you gotta look at all of it.
Yeah, gotcha. And the clinic,
As
how would the
opposed to
clinic?
a clinic, what do you think about a free visit to your family doctor a year? You'd have a free checkup, do blood work and so forth, instead of the clinic idea. And have something in place that, they would be required to go get a checkup once a year. The county would pay for it.
So, yeah, we consider that part of like your wellness program, right?
right.
So, you can incentivize that too by you go get your wellness check, you get a little bit lower premium, right? Or it doesn't even have to be premium, or you get a gift card, or you get this, or you get that.
Well, and if there is no employee premium, that wouldn't even be in the equation.
Then you can give them a gift card.
Yeah. Or just, the fact that they're
cash.
not going to pay anything out of pocket to begin with, I mean, it'd be pretty easy for them to go get this free checkup. I mean, if they don't,
Yes.
it's like, yeah.
Or maybe you could say, hey, there's no premium if you get the wellness check. If not, it's $50 a month or $100 a month or something. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and we could look at both options, look at the
Yeah.
clinic cost and,
Yeah.
the cost of doing that.
We need to get
See
that
what-
cost of joining that clinic,
Yeah.
or some kind of an idea, I think, before we can
Yeah, I think-
process that.
Yeah, and that's, I think we can pretty easily do that. I guess I would throw in here, we are working with a ticking clock if we want to have any hope of having something in place for the
July.
June, or July 1st renewal. So we're going to have to make some decisions on who's going to run point on this for us pretty soon, and how we're going to wait until the end of the month even makes me a little nervous, just from the standpoint of everything that's got to be
Yeah,
done
every
before-
week we need to have this on the agenda and proceed forth and process it. Right.
I think we need to find out right away what DeKalb would charge us to join their clinic, because we would want to throw that into the equation when we take this to bid.
Yeah, I'll reach out to Steve Snyder, and
Thinking $1 per employee per year.
it's pretty high. We want to see if we can negotiate that
You
down
think
a
that's
little
funny?
bit.
Come on. Dollar used to be a lot of money in 1913.
I'll see if I can,
Okay.
Okay,
Not answering.
$1.50.
Anything else? Any comments, questions?
I think that's good enough for now.
Yeah, thank you much.
That was,
That really is understandable,
Yeah.
and we appreciate that, because we're not insurance people, unfortunately.
it kind of sounds like just what you guys were talking about, though, for the most part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much, and, yeah, I like it.
I like the idea of
I'm impressed.
copay. Like if you read here, after deductibles met 20%, 300 for this place, 100 for here, 50 for there. It's so confused. I have no idea what I pay. I just pay, because how are you going to argue with them? Whereas if I have this, I know I'm $5,500 out of pocket, and it's going to cost me anywhere from 30 to 120 for drugs, whatever. It's pretty easy matrix to figure out.
And you know beforehand,
Yes, you know
before you go
beforehand.
in,
Yeah.
what it's going to cost you.
That's been my biggest thing. If you come to get your car fixed at my dealership, I have to tell you exactly what's going to cost you. And if it's going to be more, I have to tell you before I walk into a hospital. Now, if you're dying with a heart attack, you don't say, what is this going to cost me? I get that. But you should be able, hey, I need just a general check, or I need blood. You should be able to hit a button and it tell exactly what it's going to cost you when you leave. How do people afford it otherwise?
Yes.
You know, it's, so, yeah, it's just ridiculous how, so I appreciate the simplicity of this.
Yeah. Pretty impressive, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you much.
Thank you.
And
We'll
Thank
get with
good
you.
day.
Appreciate it.
thank you, Dottie.
Thanks, Dottie.
Sitting in. Okay. Let's jump over into acknowledgement of receipt of the commissary report. Read the report. Sheriff, do you have any
Skim the
comments
report.
on the report? Okay. Very much self-explanatory.
I'll move to acknowledge receipt of the commissary report for July through December of 2022.
Second?
A motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. Motion is approved. Bad debt policy, first reading.
Did you hear back from Holly on that?
I thought she approved it. I can look at my notes.
I know he's actually working because there's a red dot on his computer, so it's actually turned on.
Okay, the bad debt policy I have. I think we received an email from Holly on January 11th stating she had no bad debt come up for the past 5 years and she's fine with the policy.
Yes. Way to read it. So this had to be established because there was the clerk and the prosecutors, they are with a program called Invest with Indiana Title 40 program. And they are making changes to locally held monies that aren't recouped. So they required that if the clerks wish to take steps forward to writing off those amounts, then they need to have this policy. So it will be ordinance number 2023-R-1, ordinance establishing a policy to write off debt. Whereas Indiana code allows county departments to bill a person or an entity for services, fees, or rent, and whereas there are times when a bill will remain unpaid, and whereas when a bill has become uncollectible for over 4 years, the DeKalb County Commissioners may establish a policy to write off the uncollected bill. And whereas the DeKalb County Commissioners now wish to establish such a policy to write off uncollected debt. Now therefore be it ordained that in order for an uncollected debt which is over 4 years old, to be written off, the following steps must be taken. A, the department seeking to write off the uncollectible debt must submit to the DeKalb County Commissioners detailed documentation supporting attempts to collect the debt and reasons why the debt is uncollectible. B, only the following debts may be written off, which is a debt of $500 or less owed to any county department. C, each department shall review outstanding and uncollectible debts no less than one time per year with the required documentation submitted to the commissioners no later than the first regularly scheduled meeting in December of each year. And D, the commissioners will determine the amount of debt to be written off. Passed and adopted. This will just be first reading.
Questions? Entertain a motion to adopt on first reading.
Moved.
Second.
Motion second. Additional comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries. First reading. We got time to do the second and third. You want to do the second and third? Or you want to sit off till next week?
I think we could do it real quick.
I want to hold off on it
Hold off.
Because I said.
Oh,
No, because I
Wow.
want to,
That's no,
I want to make sure I have the county code correct
Little
as
smack
we
down
go
there.
into next year.
that's
love it.
fine, that's fine.
Yeah.
I was gonna be kind of in favor of that anyway myself. Okay. We got the first reading, that's done. We are just about to break. I want to get the sheriff in. Let's start out with Brady real quick, and maybe we can get through a little bit of this. May have to have you come back after break, finish up. But,
Morning.
let's start out with the PTO policy for hiring folks from other departments. My thought, well, go ahead. What's your thoughts on that, Mike?
I think some form of that is almost necessary if we're going to be able to recruit. I had some conversation with some other commissioners around the state, and very few of them do a full transfer of PTO time. Usually it's somewhere in the middle, maybe half of the time or something like that. Now, a couple that I spoke with handle it on a case-by-case basis. I'm not sure that that's a good policy. I think maybe something a little more structured is a better idea. But I'm in favor of doing something to help that recruiting, particularly with the sheriff's department. We just can't run sheriff's office. I'm sorry. We just can't run 6 road deputies short. We can't do it.
I'm a member of a group that I see a lot of the lateral recruiting that's going on throughout the state, and they all offer something to try to attract those people. And one of the differences between the sheriff's office and some of the other county offices, some are similar, but some are very different in the fact that if we hire one of those new people from another department that's had 5 years on, they have 0 vacation days for that 6 months, which I understand that's how it is for a lot, but one of the differences with us is the fact that we work holidays and weekends. So when we have a deputy that would like to go to, see a child's basketball game on a Saturday morning or maybe a wedding, they have to take a vacation day to take that, where the majority of the county employees work Monday through Friday from 8 to 4 and weekends off. So, I think that's differentiates us a bit.
Yeah.
That's true. There is a difference in the departments, offices, departments combined. 24/7 on call. It's definitely different than Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. And because,
Well,
like I said, if you work in one department that's 8 to 4, you have every weekend off. You don't know, so I can see some flexibility there.
just the nature of the job.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You've got to respond to things, major traffic accidents or a lot of other things that
Okay.
put the officers in jeopardy. So there's just
Crazy
I think
people with
substantial-
AR-15 shooting at you while you're.
Yeah, there's a substantial difference there, and I think that's why the sheriff's office benefit package has always been different and more robust than the rest of the county.
Okay, we're up to break time. Let's take our break and our pledge, and we'll come back and pick this right back up.
All right. Over break time.
Okay,
Mic's
we're
on.
back and on the clock. Everybody's mic is on. We'll resume the discussion with Brady is on the PTO and on cross-hiring. Todd, any comments, suggestions, numbers you would propose? Anything?
I like we talked out in the outside a little bit, and if we are going to do a PTO change, one of the variables should be whether or not they're coming directly from a police situation or a sheriff's operation and not private sector. So even though they had experience before, if they've spent the last 10 years in private sector, that shouldn't carry.
Right.
Is
right.
according to, and I think Brady
More
suggested.
commonly, it'd be a year where they were in law enforcement, but they went to the private sector, and now they want to get back into law enforcement. They could be considered a lateral officer because they don't have to go to the law enforcement academy. But I'm proposing not to include them in that with the vacation carryover because they're not coming from another law enforcement agency. They're coming from the private sector.
Yeah. I guess my thoughts and recommendation would be that we give them the PTO that they bring with them, but maybe start them out not at the top rate, not at the 55,000, maybe the 53.5, I believe it was. That would be my thoughts on it. But to give them the full PTO that they bring with them.
When you say full PTO, they bring with them, what do you mean by that? Do you-
Well, whatever they've
Whatever
earned,
they've
I mean, if they
accrued.
if they got 15 days.
But not more than what we currently max out at, right?
Right, right.
Okay, all right.
Just to clarify, I'm not proposing they bring that time with them.
Yeah, you're,
Okay.
whatever, yeah, and I misspoke on that, actually, that they bring forth their PTO, but it would have to blend with ours. It'd have to
Right.
go according to what ours is allowed by years of service. Yeah,
If they had 4 years of service prior as a certified officer, when they start with us, they'd start at that 4-year scale. Okay.
right, right.
I could probably go along with that. That's a good compromise, not to go to top pay right away, but to match PTO.
Okay,
And again, just want to make a statement, this is specific, I think almost specific to the sheriff's office at this point, but other than that, a department would have to prove to me that they can't staff anyone, and we have to, if we're going to do it for other departments, I think it has to be need-based. In other words,
need-based or either a time limit or a number limit.
It could be a temporary thing that could be reevaluated at some point. It may not be necessary in the future to do that.
Situations change.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just-
What,
just-
maybe a six-month time limit that you could do this? Would
I
that
think
be
we do it by the
adequate?
year. I think do it by the year if you're
By
going to
the
do
year?
a calendar year. We're already into this year, but I think for calendar year 2023,
Yeah, we're close
we'll
enough.
offer this. And then
Yeah.
just renew it if we have to renew it, we renew it. But
Is it something that can stay in place until it's rescinded?
I think we should revisit it every year.
Yeah,
Just
yeah. Let's do a 1 year
Reevaluate.
time limit on it.
Just to throw a wrench into the whole law enforcement pay scale situation too, there's a bill in the Senate right now that's going to increase this, or if it passes, it'll increase the starting pay for state police to $70,000 a year. So that will throw us right into the recruiting wrench again too.
No doubt about it. I mean, in the budget time, it's got to be addressed again, and we're falling behind, substantially behind even local departments. Comes down to competing again, I mean.
Okay, we need a consensus or motion?
I think a motion would be appropriate.
Motion?
So the motion would be that we allow any lateral move from a law enforcement organization to be considered their current PTO to be matched, our PTO to match what they currently had.
I think it would be more that you're going to accept their years of service for
Yeah.
future PTO accrual.
Yes, there you are.
Unless they've been out of government law enforcement service for more than 1 year, because you're accepting 1 year or less under the proposal.
Okay.
There's my motion.
And starting pay?
Gotcha.
We need starting pay in that. 53.5.
So one of my proposals was where they could start on the pay matrix at the sheriff's office with their years of service. So
Okay.
when they accrue that 5 years, so if they had, let's say they had the 4 years, within one more year, they'd be able to be at that, at the 5-year mark. It's not a substantial amount of money, it's just small increments, but it's a little bit more incentive that they, we're recognizing those years of service they already had as a police officer.
I'm not sure we want to put wages in the resolution. I think that we
Okay.
let the sheriff have some discretion, but obviously give him some guidance as to what our position is on that.
Okay.
That'd be a council issue too, also, because you're directly related to pay.
Well, as long as it's within the matrix, it's okay with council.
Oh.
That's
Well, I still
already
think
been
it-
passed in the salary
Yeah,
ordinance.
I still think they should be made aware of it.
Yeah.
Since they're the ones that
Yeah.
fund that, they
Yeah.
should be made aware of what's happening. I don't think that's our decision.
Scratch pay from the motion and include the 1-year timeline on the PTO.
To revisit.
Revisit, yeah, renew, revisit every 12 months.
Can you read the motion back to me so I can decide whether?
Yeah,
to
1
second
second.
it?
Okay, so I have Todd made a motion for, I may have to, for a lateral move employee or deputy. Should I say specify deputy, you think?
I'm sorry?
Should I
Officer,
specify officer?
officer.
To accept their years of service as tenure to count toward the current PTO accrual time, and the lateral move officer shall come from another law enforcement department rather than private sector, and to revisit this scenario in a year? Or each year?
I think
Yeah, we need that 1 year,
the 1-year thing
1
for
year or
the
less.
out of government service. So that if somebody's like 6 months working as a private security, but they were with the Allen County Sheriff's Department, they could still lateral
Yeah.
with the
But they should
PTO.
come from another law enforcement within 6,
Within
Within
1
that
year.
1 year of having worked for other law enforcement.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
rather than private sector. Right? So from, officer shall come from another law enforcement department within 1 year of having worked for another law enforcement agency.
Or within 1 year. They come from another law enforcement agency or within 1 year of having worked for another law enforcement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might be a way
That's-
to word that.
That's the intent. I don't know.
Simpler verbiage for sure.
Yeah.
Amazing a lawyer could think of.
Within
some
one,
verbiage.
would you say within 1 year
Or
or?
within
Pages
1
for
year.
that.
They come from another law enforcement agency or within 1 year of having worked
Got it.
at another law enforcement agency. I think covers what you're looking for.
And leave the private sector part out?
I think we could do that.
Okay. Let me read it. Okay.
More time.
So, motion for a lateral move officer to accept their years of service as tenure to count toward the current PTO accrual time, and the lateral move officer shall come from another law enforcement agency or within 1 year of having worked for another law enforcement agency, and to revisit this scenario each year.
And we'll second that.
Heard it.
It's really approved.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any other comments from anyone? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same. Motion carries.
Well, thank you very much.
6 new deputies.
We'll work on it.
Okay.
Anything else?
By 5?
We'll get into the other issue, maybe next week. We'll dive into that and start putting together some plans, suggestions, and we'll go with that next week. Okay. Thank you.
Good day, Sheriff.
I have something really quick.
Yeah, what you got?
I missed you guys reappointing Frank Pulver to the BZA for 2023, so if somebody can just do that motions for record.
We're going to appoint Frank Pulver to a 2023 term on the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Second.
Your motion second, comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same. He was appointed. Okay. That brings us to the solar ordinance, I do believe. Unless there's something else needs to be taken care of before that.
Give me 30 seconds just to mention one bill here, because
That's fine,
we
sure.
need to support this one for sure. There's a House bill and a parallel Senate bill that will change the percentages on the MBH restricted versus non-restricted, and lower the restricted percentage to 40%, increase non-restricted to 60%. Dave Abbott is running that bill in the House, and I think we really want to support that.
Absolutely.
There's, I think, some consensus to maybe just do away with that percentage eventually, but this is sort of that first step. So,
Do you happen to have that number by chance? If not, I can get it later.
yeah, I probably do.
It's all right, I can.
There's, I'll look it up for you and send it to you. Oh,
What, is it currently 60/40?
no, it's 50/50.
Oh, is
now.
it 50/50?
The Senate bill is SB 74.
The 60/40 give us a lot more latitude in how we spend our highway funds.
The House bill is 1174.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
I mean, I have other stuff, but do you want to do that after solar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get solar out of the way, and then we can clean up. We got a couple other items on the list also.
Okay.
And clean that up afterwards. Rather than read all through all of this, unless somebody really wants to do that, let's go down to the,
You don't want to read it, Bill?
want to read the whole thing? I don't want to, I'm not going to read it. Let's go down to the, skim through it, I assume you have. I know Mike has, I have, Todd, you've kind of gone through this. The first thing I think we need to address and look at is the 3-12, or 3.12. And Mike has a red line under that as far as the number of acres not to exceed in DeKalb County to be designated as a CSESO. He's got 12,000, recommend 12,000. I'm more in the favor of somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000. Noble County, I think, captures at 4,700. 46. They want a percentage of some sort, 5%, they come up with some number like that.
5% for DeKalb County would be 7,500 acres.
Would be 7,500. You think, Todd?
I was thinking the 6,000, but to be honest with you, I just pulled that out of there. It's kind of a gut feeling, just, and taking into consideration Noble County, you know. We're, like you said, 5% for us would be 7,500. I just thought 6,000 was a number that.
I kind of like that,
That's 4%.
Yeah.
I'd support
6,000.
My number was just a
Yeah, okay,
place to start the discussion.
I agree, yeah.
6,000.
I like the idea of 6,000 acres.
I go for that.
Okay.
Next red line. Each process below.
Okay, wait, I'm sorry, you just, 6?
6.
Okay,
1,000,
yes,
6 acres.
got it. Sorry.
Next red line, each process below requires a public hearing but may be held during the same meeting. What's your thoughts, Mike, or what's your reasoning?
Well, the purpose of that was just to be very clear that everything that happens has a public hearing and an opportunity for, and that wasn't really specified in the original ordinance, but I wanted to be clear to everybody that there's, each step of this process gets scrutinized and has an opportunity for public input. So that was just kind of some additional information added. Didn't change anything. That process was already part of the ordinance automatically, but I wanted to make sure that that was clearly stated in the ordinance, that was how it would work.
Would work.
Yeah.
Fine.
You like that, Todd? Okay. Next red line is in, looks like paragraph B, or subpar. Application files for development plan.
Yeah, I'm just taking the original version said development plan approval. That wasn't proper because it's not an approval. They have to file for a plan, and it all has to go through the approval process.
Right.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah. So,
Okay. All righty. Anything else on that page, Todd or Mike? It's not already redlined.
no, don't think so.
Going to the next page. We come down, it looks like to decommissioning.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm going based off of kind of the things that you sent.
Yeah, yeah. Mic on?
Sorry. Yeah. I think you're going to want to include on page 2 of what you're looking at from Mike's proposed revisions, adding in if you want a fire prevention plan or fire protection plan, that's where I think you'd want to add that.
Is that where that need to go?
Under page 2, under 3.13, it'd be B, and then I, and then it'd be like number 10.
Oh, okay. Fire protection plan.
Yeah.
Because I had that, I'd put that recommendation in on my, that there is a fire protection plan that,
So that would be number 10 under I.
yes.
What would a plan look like? How would you set a standard for a fire protection plan, knowing that you're going to be dealing with volunteer fire departments out in that area too, and
Well, that's my understanding is that's all part of the process with the developers. They are experienced in doing those, so they would work with Homeland Security and the fire departments to develop a plan for the premises. You can't really put together
Yeah,
a fire protection plan if you don't have a development plan to work
that's what I'm
from.
saying. Each development's going to be a little different too, so it would just have to be negotiated at that time.
yeah. I
That'd be
think
part of the application
Right,
process.
yes.
And it'd
I
be
think
based off whoever those fire districts are.
Right, that's what I'm saying. You're going to be dealing with different fire districts, different,
And they have to be included in that,
Yeah.
that particular
It's-
plan.
It's the fact that somebody doing a $200 million investment isn't going to have a safety plan in place just doesn't make any sense
Yeah, I
at all.
agree.
So, I'm fine with codifying it in the ordinance, but
the reason why I say that, fire to me is,
well,
it's not an issue for
solar
me.
panels don't burn; they might melt.
Not
but,
generally, yeah.
there's no more hazard there than a crop stubble on the field across the street.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest problem in a dry season, a dry year, is a bad connection or faulty wire.
Yeah.
And we have a arcing spark that drops down and catches vegetation on fire. I think in
Or-
addition to a plan, we need training for those fire departments.
Yeah.
How do they get in, how they access those facilities? And
Right.
And
That's what
what's
I
the
was saying, the
protocol
specifics.
for spraying water on anything that's electrical? Is, you know, they need to have some kind of,
Well, there is a disconnect
Right.
there that disconnects the DC.
but they need to know,
Before it
they
gets
need
to
to
the
know all
inverter,
that,
they need to
those
have
particulars
access,
and
know how to work that.
details.
That's the specifics I was talking about for the plan, and like Mike says, that it's part of the application process. So in the application, we have this equipment, this design, and then the fire department and Homeland needs to sit down and say, okay, where's our access to that switch? How is that switch highlighted?
Yeah.
How do we get to,
Yeah, they'd have to be walked through the entire
They would have to
project
look at
when
the
it's
plan.
done and show them exactly where this is all at.
well, they
Yeah.
need to be in the plan process too.
Yeah.
When they bring the plan, I think Homeland Security and the fire departments have to review the plan.
Anytime a development plan is presented, it's routed to all of the, departments, highway and fire and sheriff's department. That's where all the routing comments come from that
Okay.
they have to address before anything happens.
Okay.
But, I would suggest that they're going to have a Knox box, the same as any commercial structure would, with a key to the premises that the fire department has access to so they can get in.
Right.
So all of that training and access is going to have to be part of the development plan.
Yeah. Okay, anything on that, anything else on that? All right, you had some yellow area there that was blocked out.
Yeah, I took the provision for an irrevocable letter of credit out of the process. And just left a requirement as of a surety bond filed and I increased the percentage to 125% from 115. I think we lowered that at the last time around. I wasn't particularly in favor of it at that time, so a surety bond for 125% of the cost of decommissioning, and that is again reviewed every 5 years as
Right,
was part of the original process.
right.
What is the, we said it's reviewable every 5 years, but are we putting a cap on how much we'll require on the decommissioning? Or is it, we're going to tie it to CPI, or how are we going to come up with the
Well,
amount of increase?
The way that is set up, it has to be, the amount has to be set by like a third party.
Okay.
And then that third party would review that every 5 years to
Right.
see if there's, what the increase would be.
Okay, all right. I just don't
You know,
want to.
I mean, it could conceivably go down.
Right,
You know.
well, and I just wouldn't, I wouldn't want to be unfair to either side of this issue, the solar people or the people against the solar. I'd want to know what my costs are as the solar department, or as someone putting investment in, and I wouldn't want to just arbitrarily say, well, now we need 200%,
Yeah,
And I appreciate that. I mean, that was part of the conversation or the statement that we made when we first started writing this ordinance a year and a half ago, that we wanted to make sure it was fair to everybody.
Yeah. As long as we are not gonna. Third party, who would the third party be? I mean,
It would have to be somebody that agreeable to the two parties, somebody with experience in doing that, whether it was Baker Tilly or somebody like that.
and when that would probably happen is going to be couple decades at least down the road, and hopefully there's more of a grasp on what this will actually
right.
cost.
Yeah,
Right now, we're kind of, it's a little bit of an unknown,
yeah,
because there's not a lot of decommissioning taking place yet.
yeah.
But that's something that would be a learn, and that's why it's important to reevaluate it every 5 years and able to increase that as needed,
there you are.
because the
Yeah.
technology, whatever, is
Yeah.
going to change.
Yeah,
Sure.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. The bond, and then down to the liability insurance. I see you've increased that from 500,000 to $1 million
Yeah.
for property damage occurrence.
Yeah,
That seems logical to me.
yeah.
You too, Todd?
I think a million's absolute minimum anymore. That's just enough to make lawyers rich, in my opinion.
No, not,
No comment.
he wasn't insinuating.
I'm just saying,
Present
you're
company.
better to have no insurance or big insurance.
Well,
Somewhere in the middle
Is
just
that-
makes
is that
everyone-
enough?
I don't think that's enough
And that's not an aggregate number, that's per occurrence.
per occurrence, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so,
Well, you have 2 million per person and 1 million per property damage occurrence.
right,
Oh, okay, so it's
So
2
the per
million.
person is 2 million, which is
Right.
more reasonable.
Okay.
yeah, the million is just property,
It's just property.
yeah.
So I'm not sure what kind of property damage we're talking about, like if it blows over and knocks something down on a neighbor's property. The
Well-
per person is somebody could slip and fall and get hurt.
Right.
Yeah.
Property might, there again, any
fire-
possibility of fire
A
would,
fire that spread or something like that.
that would be about it.
Would be really about the only,
Well, a million
Instance.
wouldn't cover anything. If there was a real fire, I mean, you wipe out one house. it would
well,
be-
but this is a per occurrence, so that's per,
What's the total aggregate then? What's the total that they'll pay out? There's got to be a cap. You say per occurrence, but let's say it wipes out 10 houses.
we'd
Will
have,
they pay 10?
yeah, we'd have to see what the limits are.
Yeah,
on
that's
their
what I'm
policy.
saying. I'm more worried about the limits than I am the total limit.
Well, and I don't think, when it says per occurrence, that's a little ambiguous as to whether or not that means per fire. Because one
That's what I'm
fire
wondering.
burning 10 houses down is really just one occurrence,
Right,
is how I would view it,
right.
or the court system might
I'd-
view it.
Yeah, I would need to know what the total is they'll pay per year or per, guess what, there's got to be a total that they pay. And that's, if it's only a million, I don't think that's enough. Liability.
I tend to agree. What number are we thinking about? 5?
Liability insurance isn't that expensive, from what I've found. It's our cheapest expense in our business. I don't think 5 million's out of the question.
Yeah, I'm all right with that.
I'd like to know
With
what-
With a $5 million aggregate.
Realistically, what it would cost them, though, I don't want to, again, put an undue burden if that seems excessive.
Yeah. It's probably not going to be.
I think 5 million is a good number.
Yeah, I think on my farm policy, and I wasn't a big farmer, I had $1 million just on my farm policy, and that's been a lot of years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and then he can pretty easily add like a $5 million umbrella
Buy an umbrella.
to a property and casualty policy too. So I don't think 5 million is a prohibitive
I
requirement.
would agree. I would shoot for 5 million on the liability side.
okay.
In an aggregate. yeah,
Aggregate.
yeah.
And then, like I said, if they want to do $1 million policy and a $4 million umbrella, I don't care how they get it.
Just so we've got this.
But it's, like I said, every liability insurance, unless you're in some crazy business, like skydiving without a parachute instruction or something.
So we're changing the red million to 5 million?
Yes.
No,
And, no.
no, 2 million,
The red million to 5 million.
oh, well, you can change that to 5 million aggregate, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Are you saying, so 2 million per person, a million per property damage occurrence with an umbrella of 5 million?
Yeah, or an aggregate coverage of
Aggregate
5
coverage
million,
of 5 million.
yeah.
Okay, we come on down to FI.
And again, that's just removing the irrevocable letter of credit option and,
For the bond.
yeah, requiring a bond.
Okay. Now, next page.
It looks like under FII, if I could just bring up a point, it looks like there was another cross-out that was not highlighted for the same reason, irrevocable letter
Oh,
of credit.
yeah, missed one,
So if
sorry.
you're, yeah, okay. So if you're approving
Okay.
highlights with changes, I'd want to include that highlight.
One, two.
Oh,
on the
yeah,
record.
in 3 also.
In 3,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good catch.
That's what we pay him for.
That's right. Make the big bucks.
All right, let's go over to the next page. To G. I have a question on this. AA or a CSES is considered abandoned 365 days after the date on which the CSES last generated electricity. I had a comment come to me about that. What if they just keep generating electricity forever? I mean, the percentage is going to decrease and decrease and decrease, but is it going to be cheaper to generate at 15% or to decommission it?
Well,
In other words, they could just leave it go till it died and then decommission it, but it's not really contributing much to the grid.
I thought about that, but then again, if they're paying these farmers $1,000 to $1,200 an acre, I have a hard time believing they're gonna keep renting the land
Generate 15%.
to generate 15% power. That, I don't think that's gonna be an issue the more I thought about it. 'Cause I
Okay.
thought the same thing, well, hey, just leave 10 panels hooked up and, you know,
Well, or even all of them. They're
Yeah.
just not going to be putting out much,
right.
they're not
But-
going to be making much money.
Yeah, I just don't see them continuing to release the land, and of course, the farmer is gonna say, you're not paying me, get your panels out of
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
So I don't know that that's gonna really be necessary, but that's
Okay.
just my but I was on board with that till I thought about it, I thought, wait a minute.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Okay, just a question I had and
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it was a
that
good
the
question,
patron
though.
had, and,
Yeah,
yep, okay. Going on down. Heading of under H, B3, setbacks from neighboring different ownership parcels or less acres that are both participating landowners and are part of the CSES lease area shall be 0 feet. I'm not sure, I think we need to have some space in between them for wildlife corridors. For one thing, he specifies in what the UDO, they should be back 30 feet from the property line, right? H.
HB3
3,
under setbacks.
under setbacks.
Yeah, are you good?
To me, we need animal corridors, wildlife corridors. And so if we went with the setback, it was required by the county, that would leave a 60-foot. Well, if it's a non-participating, leave a 30, if there's two participating side by side, that would leave a 60-foot corridor, am I correct?
30 foot on either side.
30 foot on each side, participating. That would provide a corridor that I would think would be adequate.
Well, and that would also technically satisfy the current zoning, whereas we're kind of
Yeah.
stepping over the current zoning, other than if it's the same landowner, I guess. Currently, if someone came to you and says, hey, I want to build a barn right on my property line, I own both parcels, but they're separate parcels, but I want to put a barn right on the property line, could they do it?
We make them combine the parcels first.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So
it would be required.
I agree that if it's separate parcels, it should have the setbacks intact.
The Plan Commission looked at that and discussed that during our public hearings. One of the questions, I remember Jerry Yoder, I think it was, talking about what does that extra land look like? And if it's a wildlife corridor, theoretically, it can just grow up and it's not going to
Yeah.
need mowed, it's not going to need maintained, anything like that. What I've seen on the plans that have come is that we'll just need to specify that those animal corridors need to stay open and not be fenced.
Yeah,
And that would be
Because they'll
fine.
they fence around the panels.
Right.
But
yeah.
Leave that
fencing
open.
around those panels and going, 60 feet
Right.
between the two, just want to make sure they're not fencing that corridor off.
Yeah, there wouldn't be
In the
no
end.
point in having the corridor.
Well, we need to make sure that it's specified
Right.
because they're fencing off the lease areas. I just don't want it to get into an arguing match between the two at this, and,
Because that it does add quite a bit of expense to add
Yeah.
basically 2 more rows of fencing,
yeah.
instead of 60 foot that they got to fence just once, now they're gonna have to fence the total length of the. I don't see a problem with that on my end. I mean, I could support that. Because again, if they combine the parcels, then that's a different story. Combine the parcels.
Well, if they're two different owners.
They can't because two different owners.
No, I mean, if it's the same owner though,
Oh.
with 2 different parcels, I think that needs to, but if they combine them,
Yeah.
can't stop that, so.
So are you wanting, I think this just needs to be clarified, Bill, as to setbacks from neighboring different ownership parcels? Or are you wanting, if it's 2 separate parcels, same ownership, 2 separate parcels, different ownership, you want a wildlife corridor through there, or just separate ownership? There's a lot in the county, and, 20-acre parcels, 10-acre parcels, they combine or have, 3 or 4 20-acre parcels, or an 8-acre parcel and a 25-acre parcel.
My thought was separate ownership,
Okay.
was my thinking. I hadn't really actually considered if it was,
The only problem with that is that you can say separate ownership, but let's say they want to sell a parcel later down the road, now you got them panels right up to the property line.
they'd be back 30 feet.
Well, you just said though on separate ownership only.
Oh,
So if, in other words, if a farmer owns 2 parcels, brings the panels right to just one continuous operation, let's say he says, well, I want to sell those 40 acres there. Now you have panels right on the.
well, he's boxed himself in at that point, actually.
Okay.
And I would assume that the solar panels are going to then lease to whomever that new, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Even if they would sell it with the solar panels on, and then they would lease to,
Yeah.
if I sell to you and you bring up that lease, they're then considered a legal non-conforming.
Let's back
which
this up
doesn't
just a
matter.
little bit. The reason for the corridors is we don't want 4,000 acres all fenced in, blocking off. I think this leads back to maybe saying a maximum of 80 acres, and anyone would be a better solution than doing this 30, requiring a bunch of extra fencing here and there, to keep the 60-foot path on. In other words, if there's a 40-acre parcel and a 40-acre parcel, and you're going to force a line through it, I would rather say, well, let's just say 80 acres is the maximum to be fenced in, or 100, or whatever number we come up with, and that would be a better use of the wildlife.
I think that's a much slipperier slope from a legal standpoint of of dictating how much of a landowner's property can be used that way rather than just staying with the setbacks.
Well, I think it's more of just every project being approved at a certain amount, and they can still do more projects on that land, but then we got the same setback scenario I don't know, I'm just trying to make it simpler and to cause less grief. You talk about fencing, it could be a nightmare. You
Well,
put
if
5 or 6 parcels together and say, okay, now there's gotta be 60 foot, and, I don't know. I'm not sure about a legal challenge. We're this is all at our discretion anyway, whether we approve the project or not. We can flat deny any project. Just say it's not best use of the land, sorry. But I'd like to give them some clear guidelines on what we will likely accept. I hate to have them step through all these hoops and then say, sorry, no.
Yeah.
Well,
the setbacks are the simpler way to do it. Whether you adjust them to 15 feet, so you've got a 30-foot wide wildlife corridor, or you stay with 15 or 30 and you have a 60-foot corridor or whatever, that's not fenced.
Well, let's back it up even further then. Let's say, okay, say there's gonna be 1,500 acres here. Maybe there needs to be multiple wildlife corridors on a big project like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's not limiting.
And there's typically going to be, just because based off of the drainage easements,
Yeah.
where I've seen the one development plan non-completed project come in, is that I think it'd be good, maybe, it might be a good exercise for us to go in and see how much acreage is being fenced in any one site, because the one project that's come has panels spanning 1,200 acres, but only 637 of that is going to be fenced.
Fenced
So,
because of wetlands.
and then
because of drainage
how many of
easements.
those individual fenced parcels or areas are there? Are there 30 fenced parcels that, or areas that are 60 acres each? I don't know. That might be a good exercise to do, just to see, because we might just be making something up that just doesn't exist. Putting laws in place that there's not an issue now.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, solutions in search of a problem.
yeah,
The other part of that too, if you look at how all of these projects are laid out, wherever they are, it's not a solid 40 acres of panels. They've all got
right.
access roads in between at certain intervals, because they have to be able to access the panels. So, and they're also fire breaks. Those access roads are service fire breaks. So it's not like you've got 40 acres of nothing but panels. You know, they're all broken up.
Yeah, but
But they're still fenced in, aren't they?
they're still
though?
fenced in, yeah.
Yeah, they're still fenced. I'm talking for wildlife, not for.
Yeah, the wildlife can't get into that area, obviously, because it would be fenced off.
Right.
What we need to just try and eliminate is any continuous acreage that might run for 2 or 3 miles without a corridor across it.
Oh, yeah, I don't,
And lots going to depend, of course, on the regulated drains, where those are at, and that's another issue.
And wetlands and floodplain, and there's a lot of other things that are going to dictate where those panels can go. You know, they're not going to do it in peat, for instance, or, you know, there's a lot of just different scenarios.
It's kind of hard to really come to a number or a consensus because of the variation in the situations.
well, maybe the way to look at that is that every project would be considered on its own merit by the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission has the authority to add those conditions.
I would feel more comfortable
Development
putting
plan.
something in there that says we require animal corridors.
Yeah.
And it gets,
To be determined by,
and it can be determined through routing as well,
Yeah.
that, you know,
yeah,
you have 1,200 acres here that's fenced in, you need to put in 2 or 3 animal corridors that cross this just to make it better for that. But I think
that's easier to handle on a, because no
Yeah.
2 projects are gonna look the same anyway.
no,
Right.
no.
Yeah. One solution isn't going to fit all, for sure.
Right.
Or one ordinance in that
Right. situation.
Yeah, what do you think, Todd? I kind of like that. Each project has to go through the Plan Commission with the ability to,
Wildlife corridors will be required to be determined by Plan Commission.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think I would be on
Get
board with
signs
that.
for the deer and the rabbits so they know where to go.
That's right, you have to have, yeah. And there was a comment made
Todd,
about.
can you sit out there with your carrot on a stick?
Yeah.
Make sure they know where they're going. I would
There was a
probably put something in there under like ground vegetation and landscaping versus it being a setback. Or I'm trying to see where that would fit that's going to make, I try to make it, where's it going to fit that we're going to find it? And we're going to catch that it needs to get regulated. I don't know if setbacks is the correct spot for animal
What about
corridors.
K fences? Since we might be talking about the corridors beside a fence,
That's
you
true.
could add it under
Yeah, you're probably
subsection
right.
K fences.
It wouldn't
Yeah.
be in setback.
Yeah, good point.
Just as an extra requirement that they take that into account when they're making their fence plan, that there's adequate wildlife corridors.
I can't.
I like it.
And not particularly, well, that could be determined, the width of those corridors could be determined at the time, maybe. Situations,
Yeah, and I
topography,
think that,
everything's going to,
Because it might follow a drain, potentially.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
a
it's already-
drainage
it's already-
could be
it's already being
considered a
met.
Follow
wildlife
some of
corridor,
the
absolutely.
county-regulated drains.
Yeah.
So the HB3 is just getting deleted. Is that right? Or not?
I don't think so. I think you're going to leave
No.
it, and then the animal corridors will be determined by the technical
Okay.
review and the plan commission. And if that animal corridor needs to be there, it doesn't matter. I think
Okay.
it stays, yeah.
Okay, moving on down. And now we are into setbacks. Specifically, non-participating residents. Mike has specified 400 feet to the foundation, primary structure of an adjacent non-participating landowner with pre-existing residential dwelling as measured at the foundation to the edge of the CSES solar panels, including across roadway if applicable, and no landscape buffer is required.
There was really no change from the
Right.
original.
I had a suggestion there, and I think that's being a bit tight, especially if it's more than one side. My suggestion was the first side and would be 400 feet with a buffer. If there's a second side, it's going to have solar panels across the property line, that setback would be 800 feet. If there's a third side on the same property that has, third side would be, I had a couple different numbers in, but I kind of settled on 1,200 feet. In other words, each side would increase by 400 feet the footage of setback. And then if it's across the road, it would be 1,600 feet, including the road right away. So the total would be 1,600 feet.
How about and I like that idea, but to make it a little simpler, how about just one side 400? If it's two sides 600 on each side. And if it's three sides, 800 on each side. You see what I'm saying? Because you're saying 400 here, 800 here, and 1,200 here. Why not make them equal and say, okay, if you're going to only cover if this 400 foot, but if this person's going to get covered by two, it's 600 foot on each one. If it's going to be on three, 800 foot on all three.
All three.
I would,
So you're eliminating buffers entirely. So you're eliminating buffers entirely under that scenario.
At 800, yeah, on my idea, 400 feet, that still have a buffer. Under the average, like you're going to average it out, and so it could be 600 or 800. And I think at 800 feet, yeah, we do not need a buffer. Maybe not at the 600.
I don't think you would at 600 or 800. At 400, I think they should still have a buffer.
Have a buffer.
But I like the idea of averaging it better, so we're not
Yeah, I
400
don't
here,
want to try to pick sides.
800 here, 1,200 here. Which one gets the 1,200?
Yeah.
Which one gets the 800?
Well, that's true.
You know, and because
So I
then
have a question. Can two of them come at a different time? Like, what if I had one come on my first side at whatever you guys said, 400, but then like a couple years later, somebody else came on a
other
different
side.
side, then,
It'd be per project, so it'd be,
so then that second one would be the
It would
new
reset.
first side?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. I didn't understand.
I think I like that.
That's what I was confused with too, was if we're trying to pick sides or doing a.
which one's the 1,200,
Yeah.
which one's the
Yeah.
400? Whereas I'd like to see it just go up 200 foot for every side that gets, and that has to be the average then for all of them.
At the average. I like that.
So do you want to go to 400 feet with a buffer and then 600 feet and 800?
Yeah.
And then if they're on four sides, meaning across the road,
That was the next question. For four sides, do we go to 1,000? Because it
Yeah.
is possible to be completely surrounded. Now, it'd be obviously across the road on one.
I wouldn't be in favor of doing, you can have a different, I wouldn't object to a different setback across the road, but to do all four sides based on the road side, I think.
That was the idea I had, same thing you had. You might just make that the 1,000 across the road,
Yeah.
but leave 800 on the other three.
Okay.
But it's an objective, across the road is the side you're choosing for that.
I'd hate to see anyone get surrounded completely, period, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's
I don't
why it
like-
should be.
I would almost say I'd rather say the foresight isn't an option. But personal opinion, I hate to see someone completely surrounded. And I don't think that would be probable, but it is very possible. There's a few
I
locations.
think there was one site that was kind of that scenario.
he's a participating owner, so this wouldn't even
Okay.
have anything to do with him.
So the 1,000, if that's what you choose for over the road, does that include the road?
Yes,
Yeah, that would include the road right away.
Okay.
And I could go with that, I suppose.
do with that.
So if we do an average, start at 400 on one side, 600 for two, and
800 for 3,
800, and then it'd be for all three.
1,000.
And then across the road's 1,000.
Including the road.
I like
And
that idea.
are you taking this from the foundation of the house, or are you doing property lines?
Foundation. Property lines can vary all over the
All over the
place.
house
We'd
foundation. I
have,
see,
we'd have a
sorry.
mixed bag.
That's
of-
why we did the foundation.
Yeah, we need something that's constant,
Yeah.
I like that idea.
uniform.
Okay.
So 4, 6, 8, 1,000, but 1,000 being only on the far side of the road.
Right.
My concern about that is it just chews up a lot of extra property unnecessarily. And I would be, in any case, if you go this route, I would still be in favor of including an option that can be requested by the non-participating property owner for some sort of a negotiated, maybe smaller setback with a buffer so that they're not looking at solar panels. And I think that the non-participating property owner should have an option to request that from the solar companies. What part of the reason I put that in was to encourage some back and forth and discussion between the non-participating property owners and the solar developers, just to be able to have some conversation and come up with something that's agreeable to both.
Well, part of that, though, is, and I agree with you, that's good thinking, having that conversation between the two. But then again, trying to keep it simple to where everyone knows what the rules are and it looks the same everywhere. And that's not to say, too, you can put buffer on your own property. In other words, if they're 600 or 800 foot off, you can put some arborvitaes along your property to block your view of that, too. There's nothing
Yeah.
to say you can't screen yourself. I've had to do it many times. Your house has screen. It keeps me from seeing the cars coming down the road when I pull out of your driveway.
Right? I did it on purpose.
Only you would plant those trees right there. Yeah, but I understand the point why you did it. I'm just trying to keep it simple is the thing, but I get it.
Well, I guess, part of that thought process was if the issue is not looking at solar panels, if you can't see them, what difference does a setback make? And we make better use of the ground that way.
But what if you have a house right here and a house over here, and they said, yeah, we'll take the 400 foot with the buffer, and this guy says, no, I want it 600 foot. So now the solar panels have to go like this until it gets to here and then go like that. I'd rather just be consistent. You see what I'm saying?
I think somebody from the solar end of things has a comment on that design. I don't know that. I think we lay this out in a way that we think is the best interest of everybody concerned, and if there has to be some engineering changes, as development plans are submitted,
I gotta kind of agree with Mike on this, that the property owner should have that option maybe. You know, he, like you say, he might rather look at a bunch of trees rather than the solar panels 400 foot away or 600 foot away.
So give the option then 400 with buffer or
give them the option to have, any of these, the 200 foot or
Reduce
buffer
the
or what.
setback with the buffer.
Yeah, and that can
And
be
that
a
would utilize
negotiation
more of the-
between the non-participating property owners and the solar companies.
Because buffer can be the dirt as well, right?
Well,
Like a mound.
Combination
Plus a
of-
tree.
combination.
Yeah, combination of that.
Yeah, and that comes up in the next
Just
paragraph.
saying, the buffer, depending on how they negotiate the buffer, they could have a pretty tall buffer theoretically.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and there's some language in that next section that really kind of clarifies that whole berm buffer
Right.
and the negotiation process.
Yeah, I'm a little
Okay,
bit,
so, just so I have my notes right. So you're at 400, increasing by 2 without a buffer, and the ability to negotiate to 200 with a buffer and still increasing the 200?
You're halfway there.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's per side of what your property is going to be, have panels on. So if you're covered on one side, it's 400 feet with a 30-foot wide landscape buffer, I presume 30-foot wide?
that's.
But I thought they just said-
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then it's increases by 200 feet by the number of sides you have.
Right,
if you
so,
have-
right, I got that,
with
but
a
I thought you
maximum of
guys
4
just
sides.
said 400 without a buffer if you included the negotiation to be able to go down to 200.
That's the next conversation we're having, so.
Oh,
You-
sorry.
Yeah, scratch out that last sentence you wrote.
Okay.
I really don't like the idea of the going less than 400.
Than 400.
I think, but to Mike's point, if people on 3 sides want to be at 400 with the buffer all the way around, I think we give them that option, but I really don't want to go less than 400. Just for the future, when it might sound like a good deal to a non-participating owner now to have the buffer and stuff, but someone come to look at their house later may say, I'd buy it, but those panels are, I don't know, if we're talking about property value.
you can't crystal ball this stuff. I mean, you have to deal with the situation now, and
Use a crystal ball a lot.
We crystal ball this thing a lot.
yeah, but the problem is that's a 50-50 crapshoot.
Well, I know, I'm pretty good at it though.
Let's go to Vegas after this then.
All right, I'm in.
What's the compromise? 300 feet with a buffer? Down from 400?
You're talking about
And-
letters,
and-
you're talking
and-
about letter C now? You're talking about letter C now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
I could live with that. I could live with that. I just think that potential conversation is important to include. And I will say I'm concerned about using a lot more ground than is necessary and/or limiting the amount of saleable or leasable ground for the property owners by making the setbacks too high. I'm not going to die on that hill for sure, but that's just my opinion. Again, over and over again, the comments that I've received are, I don't want to look at the solar panels. Then there's been some, stuff on the fires and toxic stuff that I don't think really are.
I suppose if a
Non-participating.
non-participating owner wants to have solar panels close to their house, they can do it. That's up to them. That's true ownership of property rights. If you really look at it. So someone doesn't mind them being closer, I don't have a problem with it, other than if it affects their neighbor. That's the only thing I'm saying. If you got a house here and a house here,
Well,
and this guy says no, I want it to be the 600 or 800, and this guy just,
That could
now it
happen.
has to jog, you know?
Well, and that's. this
Whereas
is-
if it's
this is-
uniform,
it's
you
just
know
part of
going
the-
in.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, if this is decision by, in other words, this goes, it has to, each application has to be looked at on its merit, we have to approve it. Now we got to get all the landowners together. Okay, will you approve this?
So what's in here is Mike's suggestion would be that we would have to have some sort of written agreement like we do with the
Which would become part of the
participating property owner
development.
acknowledgement forms. That's what allows us to move forward with this project as a whole. But when we went through this a year and a half ago and we had these suggestions in there, we wanted the solar companies to have the conversations with the non-participating owners, so we weren't coming in here to a room full of 1,200 people up in arms that they've not even conversed with the solar companies. So what this does is put this back in the solar company's plate to have those conversations with the non-participating owners if they want to have a lesser setback and eat up more or eat up less leased ground.
Okay.
Now, they have the option to go the 400 feet with a buffer if they want to, if they're on one side or whatever that would be. But the Plan Commission does not want to have those conversations and be the mediator for solar panels and non-participating owners. That was something the Plan Commission was adamant about from day one, is that these solar companies have got to converse with these non-participating owners to come up with a compromise themselves. And this puts it back in the ordinance, what the Plan Commission originally wanted. But I also like Bill's suggestions on the setbacks per side of increasing based on the number of sides that your property is going to be covered.
The jog and the panels you was concerned about that, it's going to be a jog anyway, because it comes from the foundation. No two houses are going to be the same amount of footage from the
That's true.
From the property
That's a
line.
good point. That's something I didn't think about.
Yeah, so it's off the prior or off the house foundation, so it's gonna,
Bill,
Fortunately, we don't have to engineer it.
yeah. Like I said, if someone wants them closer to the house, I don't have a problem with that, but I still say the standard ought to be 400 with a buffer and then 6, 8, and then
Yeah,
1,000
I
across the
agree. I
street.
think we agree.
And then if they want to make a deal and say, hey, yeah, put it 200 foot from my foundation, sign off on it.
yeah,
And you can't sell your house later, that's your problem.
well, there again. they
That's your
boxed-
property rights.
They've boxed themselves in.
That's
So
their property right
their-
to do.
That's their
So,
decision,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Okay, I think we're good there then.
yeah.
Okay.
I like that idea.
All right. Okay,
So what do you want that for C and C1 and D? Right now it's at 200 feet. Do you even care? Like, what if the negotiation was, I'm fine with 100 feet from my foundation, and you put in a 30-foot wide landscape buffer that's,
I think you could take it right down to the property line minimum setback of
Right.
30 foot, because that's true property rights at that point. If that person doesn't care, it doesn't matter.
Or you could leave it as 200 or as determined by the negotiation, or
You want to have some minimum in.
Yeah, you want to have
30
some
foot
minimum in place.
Or 100 foot or 200 foot. I think you need to have some minimum in there probably. Just for-
well, 30 foot is the standard.
Well, I guess what I was saying is make 400 the standard, and then say this is subject to change down to, right down to the minimum.
Whatever
on
you'd want.
Whatever the property owner wants. 400's a standard that no one can, unless the property owner agrees to let it, and then it can be as close as 30 foot to the property line. I mean, that would be true property rights and still protects the people that say no.
You're right about
I want
that.
at least 400 and a buffer, we have that to protect them. Now, if they want to take a payment from the solar company or whatever they want to do, that's their right. Way I see that.
30 foot from
The
the
property
property
line.
line to the solar panels. And then for most homes in DeKalb County, unless there's some sort of a waiver or pre-existing
yeah,
home, they're going to be at least, 30 foot or 60 foot maybe back from.
30 feet from the house.
30
for
feet from
property
the
line.
other house, so when you say a minimum of 30, you're really saying 60 from the
Yes,
foundation.
exactly, I'm sorry, from the property line,
That's
yeah.
what it translates to.
Yeah. But I think that gives the protection to the people that don't want them there, doing the 400 with the buffer and then 600, 800, and 1,000. And then it also gives them the ability to say, hey, I want to work with the solar company. They're going to pay them whatever, and if they want it closer, I don't have a problem with it, because that's
Yeah.
them controlling their individual property at that point.
Right.
So I'd suggest we go back to what well, not back, but keep what the ordinance is now. And Mike, if you want to pull it and read what that section is, ordinance is in the right behind you. Nope. The binder. There you go. We could put Bill's suggestions in there for A and B, and then C would be, from what Mike's proposed, replaced with, actually, I take that back, Mike, it's not going to be in there. We'd have to go back to the original ordinance.
It's easier just to read it off.
Yeah, we'd have to go back to the original ordinance the Plan Commission proposed for what Todd is suggesting. That if they want to come up with their own setback negotiations
Oh,
with
I
the
don't-
solar
yeah,
panels.
I don't have that
Yeah, we
one
don't
either.
have that,
It's not
sorry,
in
I'm overthinking. And I can send that all to you again, so you can take a look to see what that exactly said. That way I'm not rewriting it.
Okay.
It's already been written.
Okay, we set?
Yep.
We are down to, C, we did C, we went through C, kind of. Let's go back up to B. The landscape buffer.
Yeah.
Foot wide, 5 foot high.
Where you at?
Paragraph B.
Setbacks, again, but just B above.
Oh, there we go, okay.
Find it.
So the buffer for your 400-foot setback is what you want to discuss?
Right, right. Or the. Or the
other, if there's the negotiation, yeah.
Yeah, right. Mike had put in 30-foot wide, 5-foot tall maximum.
5-foot berm. But there's a maximum height on the berm.
Okay, well, you mean then,
So anything above that has to be planted.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
I put a maximum height on the berm because,
Well, actually, you did 5-foot
well,
maximum or 60% of what the total height would
right,
be.
yeah,
So if
right.
your house is 5 feet above what this solar panel is, and you need a 30-foot tall buffer, 60% of that is what your mound could be.
If you start looking at 10 or 12-foot berms, then you've got all kinds of issues with
Yeah.
drainage and runoff, potential soil erosion. If you keep the berm smaller and add the plantings on top, it's a much more controllable situation.
As far as the drainage, Joe, the 5 foot's going to create a blockage in a lot of situations. It's going to have to be a relief tile,
It'll have to be tiled underneath.
it
Yeah.
to release. So
Oh, yeah.
whereas 5 or 10,
You make a swimming pool otherwise.
yeah, you're still going to have some issues there with it's 5 or 10 foot high.
Yeah.
I guess the reason I was thinking about the 10 foot high, it gives you more of a permanent blockage where the vegetation is going to come and go as it dies. In a lot of situations, if that vegetation doesn't get watered and we have a really dry summer, on top of that berm, it's going to die.
Die quick. And that is
It's
true.
going to die within a year. It'll never grow an inch. That was my idea of maybe a little higher berm. You have a little bit more of a head start on that for that vegetation to get going and get this, get rooted in the way it should be. That's a real problem with a dry year.
Yeah.
I mean, you could lose it all.
Well, I think, though, we probably need to take a look at the purpose of the landscape buffer is to hide the panels. So what's required at 400 feet to hide the panels is different than it would have been at 200 feet, just because of the physics of,
Visualization.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing to consider here is that if you jump over to I, we've reduced the maximum height of the panels from 18 feet to 12 feet.
Yeah.
So what's required to hide, I mean, if you have a 10-foot berm, then you really don't need anything else to hide the panels. So, I think we need to take a look at how that actually looks before we start putting numbers into those things.
And there's always going to be this variation of the lay of the land.
Yeah.
I mean, that can just change everything drastically.
Land can change 20, 30 foot in one.
Yeah, I mean, if the panels are out here on the hill, you may never get them screened.
Yeah.
If the panels are out there, your house is on the hill and the panels down here below you at 400 feet, it may not take much screening at all.
Yeah. So I think the key verbiage to leave in there is that it has to hide the panels.
Has to hide the panels.
If we're going to change the setbacks to 400, then I think that's probably sufficient. Because it also says further down that it has to meet, the landscape buffers have to comply with that particular verbiage before we can issue a certificate of occupancy. So that guarantees that on the final inspection, if that buffer doesn't screen the panels from this non-participating property owner, they don't get a C of O to turn the key. So, I don't know that starting to put numbers in, particularly with the change in setbacks, really serves any purpose.
Could you put something in, like the berm at minimum has to cover and not an actual number, depending where?
Right.
Well, I think that the language in here, that it has to hide it has to screen the panels and can consist of a combination of privacy fence, berm, and plantings, as long as it completely screens the panels from the non-participating property owner. I think that covers just about every combination that you can come up with.
I kind of tend to agree. There's got to be some flexibility there
Yeah.
because of that topography of the land. It's just going to change. Everyone's going to be different.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to be different.
We're in Van Wert, Ohio, we could just come, that land's all flat.
Yeah.
We're a little
Right.
different here.
While we're on that line of sight, you stated standing next to the house. I think we should go to a different level. I think we should go to the top windows of the house. Because if you're standing outside the house, you're standing inside the house is on a basement, you're at least 2 foot higher standing in the house than you would be on the ground beside the house. So for the sake of simplicity, I think that line of sight should be from the top of the first floor windows. That can be measured from outside the house, it's consistent, or the top of the door, whatever the door that might be. That should be the line of sight to hide the panels. The standing outside the house it's not the same as standing in the house. That's where I'm at with
I
that.
kind of threw that in because, way back when,
Yeah.
the comment was, you should be able to go sit on your deck and not see solar panels. So I kind of took it from
But I
that.
think you ought to be able to stand in your kitchen window doing dishes and not see solar
Well,
panels.
yeah.
And that's going to be different than standing in front of that window in the kitchen and looking out towards those solar panels. It's going to be 2, maybe 3 foot difference, depends.
It does, but I'm just wondering if we're getting overly complex at that point. In other
Actually,
words,
that would simplify it. We're just talking about the top of the window.
but what if someone has the top of a window that's 20 foot up on the first floor? I have a first story. No, seriously, I mean,
Yeah.
some people build these big vaulted ceilings. Well, that's my window up there, and
Well, you bring up a good,
I just think we're getting into pissing match in the future between a landowner saying, nope, top of my window is this, that hill has to be 32 foot tall now,
Yeah.
you know?
I hadn't thought of that.
I don't know. I'd rather
All right,
keep it
so-
simple.
Well, so here's what fixes that.
Okay, give me the fix.
And when you get, and this is a little farther down, but the verbiage that I inserted here was, the total height of the buffer must be agreed upon by the CSES operator and non-participating adjacent property owner, and shall be included as part of the submitted development plan.
I think that protects
That fixes it.
better than anything, and if anything, that's a real hard hit to the solar people that want to put it in, because they have to negotiate with the people to get it approved, so I'd be in favor of that.
I am too. That works.
Okay, and that's in the next section. We haven't gotten there yet, but
What section are we talking then?
that is in J, D.
J, G?
D. And that says, complete screening means that the solar panels cannot be seen while standing at, and that says ground level, but of the primary structure of an adjacent non-participating landowner with a pre-existing primary structure. The total height of the buffer must be agreed upon by the CSES operator and the non-participating adjacent property owner, and shall be included as part of 3.13 HCICI and submitted as part of the development plan. So that has to be agreed upon and negotiated. It becomes part of the development plan, and there's no wiggle room.
It's about as simple as it gets. Works?
There you are.
Okay.
So can I pull a Susan and ask?
Yeah, be a
I'm a
Susan,
little
Chris.
confused. So are you taking, you're going to leave the 30-foot width of a buffer requirement for the 400 feet, but you're going to take out the requirement of a berm height? Okay.
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay.
We may want to put a percentage in there, that height and width percentage. In other words, it has to be, the width has to be 3 times the height or something like
To keep
that.
from erosion or a steep
Yeah.
hill that you can't mow.
That way you have a
Yeah.
consistent angle of slope if you do a percentage.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
well,
saying?
Yeah, and I think that 30-foot wide buffer is a good standard. I don't see any reason to take that out even.
If it's required to go to 7 feet, then
Yeah. Well,
that'd be a
yeah.
little wider.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, let's do a percentage.
A percentage of the,
What would
The
that
height,
percentage be?
and I think 5 feet and 30, that seems,
The
how wide's this room? 30?
6% grade.
Is that 6%?
Wouldn't that work out? Is that correct or not?
Well, part of that, if you jump up to C, berms shall be no more than 5 foot in height or 60% of the total height of the landscape buffer to achieve complete screening. Berms shall also be planted to prevent soil erosion.
What you got, Todd?
So it'd be 36 foot wide if you wanted to be 6 foot tall using that formula.
That formula,
Yeah, the 10 foot would be double.
double, and you're talking 60 foot.
Yeah. So it's a 6-to-1 ratio is what you're looking at. Not
Right.
6%, I said 6%. I meant 6-to-1 ratio.
6 to 1.
So I think the easiest verbiage should be a 6-to-1 ratio,
Okay,
width versus height. So for every 6 foot this way, 1 foot up. Sound good?
works for me.
All right,
What's next?
getting a lot done.
hold on, I'm writing that down.
I just gave up. I'm just gonna let you do it.
Don't worry, Susan will remind us.
So what you could say then to replace that would be the berm shall be no more than 5 feet in height, or sorry, berm shall be at a 6-to-1 ratio of berm height to landscape width.
Right,
Okay.
And again, you just don't want to get it too steep for mowing and erosion.
Right, to mow it and that's pretty gradual. That's not
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
too bad.
That's easy.
My hill's a lot steeper than that,
yeah.
just so you know.
I'll be asking you to change that to make it in compliance.
It's about a 35%. Okay, we are down to Q. There's some red.
Where'd you go?
Midline there, landscape buffers and plantings.
Oh, he's on page 7.
Yeah, last page.
Oh, well, here, there's one other,
Is there one other?
going back up here to J, that I inserted in here. A landscape buffer will be considered to be in compliance when the buffer must run the length of the adjacent non-participating property line contiguous to the CSES, and then the "and" then includes that complete screening means that the solar panels cannot be seen, that I'd already read. So that's part of that.
Okay.
Well, let me finish that section because there's a couple things we didn't read. E says the CSES owner has no responsibility to screen panels from view across property not owned by the non-participating property owner. And then F is all buffer screening requirements of the various sections as required by the plan and as required by the Plan Commission must be met prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy.
What you think?
Good?
We lowered the height to 12 foot, maximum height.
Yeah, because we were at 18
We were
previously,
at-
right?
Well, the original ordinance was 15, then it got raised to 18. But it's a conversation with the developers. Their panels are 10 foot now.
Even when
Height
they-
at maximum tilt.
Even when they articulate.
That was a concern.
Maximum tilt.
Maximum tilt and how wide is the
So
panel?
there's no reason to have an 18 foot
Yeah. Yeah.
minimum or maximum in there with
Right,
when you only need 12.
makes sense.
Yeah, we can go with that.
Okay.
Again, we're just keeping up with technology.
Sure.
Anything else?
And Chris, you had in there for K, adding the wildlife corridor that we already had the previous discussion
Yeah.
on. Okay.
Then if we drop down to Q, which is maintenance, repair, and/or replacement of CSES, I added to A, it says that the CSES owner must maintain the facility in accordance with the site plan permit and the ordinance. Maintenance shall include, but not limited to, I added landscape buffers and plantings. It already said painting, structural repairs, and integrity of the security measures, including fencing. And then I added, on the second go-around, if any plant material dies during any of the CSES operation, and the CSES operator will replace within 1 year or the next planting season, whichever comes first.
What would be the penalty for non-compliance?
Take them to court. That's what we do for anyone that's not in compliance with the zoning ordinance and they're not willing to become in compliance.
That's the only option would be court?
Well, that's really.
Yep.
Because the panels are already going to be there.
Yeah.
The what? I'm
The
sorry.
panels are already going to be out there.
Right.
So you don't have anything else hanging over their head.
Well, is there a fine you can institute?
So
I
we
guess
institute a
what I'm
fine as well. So typically it's $100 per day, I think, for the
that's-
fine. And then
Is that after you get a judgment, or we can start fining?
from the
you
day,
fine
from the day the
before.
violation is
Discovered.
discovered or given, yeah.
Reported,
And
okay.
notice is given to the operator, $100 a day, and then plus court costs and attorney fees.
The sad thing is though, the state limits us really to like
Like $7,500.
$7,500 in fines, which we came up to in the, there was a pond litigation where
Yeah.
the cost and attorney fees were enough that it should have been higher than that, but it was capped by statute.
I just want to make sure if we're demanding things that we follow through. It's kind of like our border.
I'm just
down
saying
in
the-
Texas. We have
The
supposed to have
fine
a
is
border,
pretty
but we
low
don't, you know?
compared to the.
If I was down there doing that,
Yeah.
No, I will remind you all too that as part of the agreement with the developers to cover the cost of consulting and outside legal counsel, we included also site inspections
Yeah.
and enforcement as part of that situation too. So that's why we're looking at $250,000 payments to be held for those things too. So that gets us into certainly covers us on regular site inspections during the construction phase to make sure that everything's being followed, and then follow-up inspections and enforcement actions that might need to be taken afterwards.
Okay. Anything else that, I've got nothing else on it.
Bill, were you okay with one of your comments was total recycling mandated as part of decommissioning?
Yeah,
Okay. And then the drainage stuff is already in there too, drainage
Right,
plan submitted and
right.
approved by drainage
the
board.
only slight concern I have about drainage is we'll have those setbacks from the drains, 80-foot right-of-way or easement, what do you want to call it, accessing that easement. Because a lot of times, these county regulated drains, they'll go across,
Right.
Yeah.
maybe across the road. We always usually come in off the road. Sometimes you come across the property owner. If that's a shorter route and it's a route that we can access that drain. If we're doing the reconstruction, there's more than just the equipment that's got to go in there. We got to take the pipe in there, we got to take gravel in there.
And I
so
think that would all be something the drainage board would need to
address, probably.
address.
Yeah.
If they come, when they come for drainage board approval, and if they request any variances in that width, then that's something the drainage board is going to have to put in their drainage plan.
Yeah.
That we have a key to access because of our big trucks. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. that would-
So,
Yeah, I mean, the standard easement on the drains is 75 foot on each side.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
And we'll, the drainage board will come down to 40.
40.
If it's necessary, but if you look at the development plan and say that's not going to give us enough room or enough access, we can leave it at 75.
yeah.
Well, it wasn't that wasn't wide enough, it's getting to that.
Well, yeah,
That setback or that easement. Because sometimes they're blocked off, different scenarios, situations.
yeah.
Obviously, if there's a regulated drain going across this big solar field, we can't go through that solar field to get to it. We're going to have to go around to the end somehow and access that easement from the outer ends of the solar field. So that was my only
Yeah,
concern
Yeah, you're right.
on drainage.
Good point.
I have one more question. On Q, the maintenance, repair, or replacement, you had asked about the fees. Does there need to be wording in there somehow that the penalties or whatever will follow
That's already in our ordinance.
whatever?
If you violate any part of it, the fines will.
Yeah, that's already part of a section of our ordinance, so we don't put it in for every section of the ordinance. It's already in dedicated
Good deal.
section. Yep.
Okay,
Thanks, though.
are we done? Last call. Okay, what I'm going to do at this time is, I see we have a solar representative here and the solar group representative here. Andrew and the gal back here, each got 5 minutes. You got any comments? Trina?
Andrew?
You know the rules, get up there.
I actually just have a quick question. I would rather let some of the other folks here speak for that 5 minutes. Like someone else take it.
Okay,
Is that all right? I mean,
Yeah.
I have
Just one
many
time.
things about what you guys have said, but I'm not going to get through them. I might as well just email you guys, take your time and
Okay.
look them over. So,
yeah, 5 minute. Just one.
Andrew,
want it?
Andrew,
Yeah,
if you want to.
I would love it. Thank you. Unkeepable.
No. Andrew tries every week.
All right. My name is Jake Butler, County Road 47, 4937, Auburn, Indiana, 46706. So I've got a couple questions about this, and I also found a lot of notes here. We spent 10 minutes on animal corridors today. And yet we're still, we spent more time on that than we did going through the rest of the ordinance pertaining to homes and people in DeKalb County. So just as a note for that one. But really, from my perspective, is when permits are denied through the court or through through the county. I know that there's been some conversation about lawsuits. So if I were to say that I have a permit that's getting denied by the commissioners, would it be suffice to say that if I had agreements with a wildlife preservation team to come in and help me build an animal sanctuary, and you guys deny it, I could then turn around and sue you guys for those legal ramifications? Or is it specifically that we're fear-mongering from the commissioner side of the house to get these items passed with this fear-mongering of lawsuits? Specifically, if there's no permits that come through, there should be no ramifications from a legal perspective within the county commissioners of DeKalb County. So, just something to think on that fear-mongering aspect of what has transpired in the past.
I really take exception to the fear mongering.
I do have 5 minutes, sir.
Yes, you do.
Let me finish.
Thank you. With that, I've also watched these meetings unfold, be it commissioners, be it the council as well. And I have very much taken an issue with the retaliation from specific commissioners, and in working with my job and my in law enforcement background, working with several federal agencies, there's a process for that reporting, and I know one of those processes is getting with DOJ, specifying that complaint, who then also invokes Indiana State Police for that investigation, for commissioners doing official misconduct. So there's some very fine lines that we have to walk and adhere to in this environment and in this setting in this commissioner state. But in closing, Commissioners Hartman and Sanderson, you guys have made great progress for today through those red lines and through those pieces. But the time is now when we need some action from the county commissioners to take heed and even just give us the gift of time for the ability to sit down and understand the true ramifications, not only from what solar panels are going to leak into our environment and into our soils, and the ramifications of what that 30-year mark is going to look like from our aspects. From an environmental standpoint, we have native wildlife that flies over top of our area. The whooping crane, they're very endangered. In fact, I have record just this year about 50 of them flew over our house. And IDEM is very aware of those whooping cranes and are very much interested in their migration paths. If we were to put these solar panels into specific areas, it would damage their flight path because they would recognize those solar panels as potential waterways and would land in those areas and cause issues with their migratory patterns. It was brought up in Van Wert. We had the same issue in Van Wert with the Michigan bat. We couldn't put up solar panels in Van Wert because the Indiana-Michigan brown bat was native and migratory for that space.
1 minute.
Yeah, thank you, sir. With that, I would like for at least, Hartman and Sanderson to take your action and put pause on this solar discussion so that way we can have the appropriate time to get out there and understand what's really taking place. Because as we're sitting in here discussing this, there are still survey crews, there are still drillers in our area doing their due diligence and really making putting their plan together in order to move forward as well. So putting a stop on that only buys us time and appropriate value. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jay. Trina, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Trina Raudebush with the Sculpin Solar Project. I do want to acknowledge Jake. He did say that there's a lot of work that's continuing to be done on our project and others, and that is very intentional and very important at this stage so that we can bring you the answers to many of the questions that you're looking for. We'll know the impact from our environmental studies. We'll know the site design from the studies that we're doing on the ground. We'll know exactly where the drainage is on the private tile because we're walking that land and mapping those with our landowners. So yes, we are continuing to do work for a very specific reason. My main question for you is, what is the proper or preferred method of us addressing some of the questions that have been brought today, rounding out the context for some of the decisions that are before you and will be before the APC? I could do hours-long presentation from some of what you guys have asked, and I know I have about 4 minutes left. What would you prefer?
Form of communication, you mean like email versus a meeting versus?
Yeah, and if we can get dialogue, that would be preferred. You asked some great questions about the site design, where the fences will be, whether it'll go across drains, which they won't, we can't. It is very likely, kind of as you doodled out, that it'll take a winding path. We'll follow drains, rivers, natural topography, wetlands, things like that. How can we have those conversations?
I think if we laid out the ordinance properly, there's really no discussion past that. In other words, you submit the plan and it goes to the review, and if it gets approved, it gets approved. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah,
and then
I want to
we negotiate it,
Yeah, I want to make sure as you're laying out the ordinance that there are things, I think somebody had said solutions looking for a problem. How can we be a helpful partner in that?
Part of this ongoing discussion per se just adds more and more. In other words, you eventually have to make a decision. And so if we make a decision and we still have ultimate control of what gets approved and doesn't, there's your final answer. We could sit here and talk about whooping cranes, we can talk about pollution, we can talk about whether the panels will pull the moon too close to us and cause the earth. I mean, there eventually we have to just, we could have discussions for years.
Yes,
Or
I would
we
like
can
you to
just
be able
put
to
some in
make
and be done with it.
an informed decision.
Yeah. There is no true informed decision. What I mean by that is, one person, this is such a subjective matter. Some people don't want solar, period. Hey, it's bad, period. I don't ever want to see it. Other people I could care less. I'll eat solar for breakfast,
And I understand the view
and so
you shed.
It's subjective in nature. And the science, as we learned with vaccine or whatever, is subjective in nature too. It's to whoever has the most money wins. So I think common sense prevails in what we've already talked about. I think what we've put into the ordinance is common sense, and it's taken into your interests, their interests, everyone's interest. And ultimately, like I said, we have to say what gets passed, so we can have discussions for years.
Yeah, can I
Or-
give you one example?
Absolutely, and I didn't mean to take your time, I just
No,
wanted
no,
to
no.
address your answer.
I will spend every minute that you'll afford me. There was a point early in the discussion about decommissioning, or I think it was under the abandonment section. The question was raised, could we just let these go on forever, even if they were just generating a small portion? We cannot. The reason why, we have an interconnection agreement with PJM, the transmission operator, for a very specific amount of time. We also have lease agreements with our landowners that have an expiration point that controls the longevity of that project. So rather than asking you to spend your time trying to solve for something that is not a reality, we'd like to be part of that information.
Yeah.
To be a little more specific about your question, these suggestions today will go to the Plan Commission for their deliberation and discussion. Part of that process is a public hearing, which obviously you will have ample opportunity to talk about all of those things at that point. If you have some written rebuttals or whatever, you're certainly more than welcome to submit those as well.
Okay. Yeah, if that's, the written is the preferred method, we'll certainly start there and for additional.
Yeah, that's the next part of the process, goes to Plan Commission, and then will ultimately come back to us.
Yeah. One question I did have on the berms, just for clarity, are they required? Or is that just an option that a developer would have for screening? The reason I ask is, again, some of those unintended consequences of, we don't want to negatively impact drainage. We don't want to build a dirt wall around your homes.
The way we left it is that
It's an option.
The option,
It's one of the tools that we have.
yeah, it has to screen the panels. How you get there is between you and the non-participating property owners.
Okay.
And there again, like we talked, the lay of the land of topography is going to just dictate an awful lot of that, what it's going
Right.
to take to do it. And in some cases, you may not need a berm. A bush might do it.
Yeah. I just
be
want to make
honest
sure
with
we don't have, again, those unintended consequences. We don't want to negatively impact drainage. We don't want to impact the highway if the berm were to, block snow. And those are conversations with departments that we take very seriously. We spend a lot of time with drainage, with highway, all of those potential impacts. We just want to know what we're working with. I appreciate, you gave more than 2 hours today, and you've given considerable time over the last months and years. So I appreciate this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trina.
I certainly take exception to the characterization of anything being fear-mongering, and I think it's deplorable that this thing is deteriorated to the state that if you don't agree with us, you're the enemy, and it's just ridiculous. Andrew, would you take a moment or two, because obviously anything that I say is discounted, to talk a little bit about vested interest doctrine?
When you said Andrew first, I was thinking Provine.
No.
Okay, go
vested
ahead.
interest doctrine and
Oh, yes, I thought about
the
that.
potential for what the actual potential is for lawsuits.
Yes,
from private transactions.
Well, I did some legal research on this, and so if someone, if there are companies that have completed applications on file, and then you go change the ordinance, let's say 30 days later, so somebody has a completed application with completed contracts, signed contracts and everything, and it's completed, and then you decide to change the ordinance afterwards, I think the weight of the case law is the courts are going to look at grandfathering in the old law for the completed applications if there's contracts and money spent supporting it. That's where I think the court would land currently under Indiana law.
Okay.
So the key timing is really when the completed applications are full and complete.
Complete as in Submitted or approved?
Submitted, completely submitted. But my understanding is right now there are no applications that are completely submitted in all parts of their application.
All right.
There is some gray area of money invested and so forth, but I would lean towards saying if there's a completed application, you've got a risk of a lawsuit. For sure.
When can this go to the Plan Commission? Next meeting,
Are you guys going to be submitting another red line version? Or should I work with one of you to come up with what was discussed today? I can send it all
Well,
three. That's not a
I think
problem.
you were taking good notes,
Yeah,
weren't you?
yeah.
So if you could do
It just needs to
that.
be reworded. So the two of us, that'd be fun.
okay.
Because I think
We're
there
gonna
was
take
good
a half day
discussion, and
today.
I think there were decisions made, and I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
between
Yeah.
these two, you could figure out which
Yeah.
those.
And I
each
think
were.
we're going to want to bring it back to the commissioners in an open meeting and just say, here's what the final red line version is that Susan and I have worked up. And if you
Yes.
guys are okay with it, we can take it to,
Yeah.
so we can probably take it to the February Plan Commission meeting.
Which, Thursday, is that Thursdays?
No, it's on Wednesdays, the
Wednesdays.
third Wednesday of the month
Third
at
Wednesday
7
in
PM.
February.
We do require, the newspaper have to give 10-day notice to them that we're going to have a public hearing. So that's the only thing that I would have to give notice for.
That's a
So
full
provided
month.
we get everything done by, you know,
That's a full month from now anyway to
I
fast
think,
track
I think
that.
it's doable.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's,
we have a plan commission meeting tonight just to do organizational stuff. And then I leave tomorrow for Florida.
no.
Uh-oh.
And this
Susan
can't
can
be
come.
done just in
I'll take
one
Susan
day
with
the
me.
Plan Commission, so.
I'll go.
What I'm saying is there's no way to get
but
a
I can-
special meeting earlier to, because there was calls for us to do a
Oh.
moratorium, which I really don't want to do a moratorium. I just want to get this thing settled.
We could do if we could get, I am gone Monday. You guys have commissioners on Monday. Obviously, I'm not going to be doing anything tomorrow or Thursday or Friday. If you and I want to meet one day, like next week, we could bring it back to commissioners the following Monday. It's not going to take us long to do this.
That's what I'd like to do.
The following Monday, which would be 2 Mondays from now, which would be,
Well, if you don't have anything, we can just do it this afternoon and get it done. While it's still in my head. I agree.
yeah. So let's plan on coming back to commissioners on the 30th.
Okay.
And
I like
then
that.
we could get it to plan commission that February 15th.
Yeah.
And if we want to do a special meeting, we can. I can bring it up with plan commission tonight. Just kind of give them an update on what's going on.
Okay.
But we need 10 days anyway, so you're talking about literal just
that's
2 or 3 days of sway time. So it's not that, you're not gaining that much time.
Yeah, you could go for the 8th. That'd give you enough time, I believe. To advertise.
Well, depending,
Is that possible?
it's possible. The newspaper requires like a 4-day something or other window to get your notice in by the time it'll get published. If you want to publish on Friday, you have to have it there by Tuesday. If you want it published on Wednesday, you have to have it there the week before. So there's some things like that I just have to work out timing wise. But the 8th could work. It's a possibility. We'll just have to keep you updated.
Could you have it back to us on the 23rd?
I won't be here, but Susan will be. And I'm not needed, I guess.
Not just for the.
Yeah, just for the
changes.
changes.
Yeah.
That would be
Why don't
good
you
if
try
we
that?
could
And
have
if
that.
you are, I'll just call you.
But
I don't know that you'd, yeah, I mean, if you guys
Just tease it.
combine it together.
You do it early in the morning.
Yeah, let's shoot for
Yeah,
the
that'd be
23rd to
fine.
bring it back to the commissioners. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that.
I'm going to take about 2 minutes if you'll allow me. Bill?
I think are we done? I'm done. You're not done.
With the meeting?
Yeah.
No?
Oh, 2 minutes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
A couple of things I want to be clear on because there's a considerable amount of misinformation and well, we'll leave it at misinformation and so forth. But just from a personal position, I am not pro-solar. I'm a big hydrocarbon guy. I drive a gas guzzler. You couldn't give me an electric car. I am not at all convinced that solar is the future of the energy supply chain, and certainly don't think wind is. I think whatever we do, it takes a combination of a lot of things, fracking and drilling and coal and a number of other things. As I said before, I think it's just really sad that a lot of the crap that goes on a national level has found its way down to the local level when we have discourse on things like this. It's impossible to agree to disagree about something or have a different opinion without being accused of all kinds of outlandish situations. As a commissioner, and all three of us are in this position, we have a lot of other things to consider about this, and I have always said from the very beginning that I'm not necessarily pro-solar or think that that's the answer, but I will give the developers the same both scrutiny and consideration that I would any other developer that wants to come into the county and make a $200 million investment. We have to look at a lot of things as a group here, including the financial aspect of things. I ran some numbers just based on the 22 certified budget. I didn't get a chance to pull the 23 numbers yet. But just the increase in assessed valuation will lower the county portion of the tax rates by about 10% for everybody in the county. So there are a lot of factors to consider. And if solar decides not to come to DeKalb County, we all have to explain why that 10% tax break on personal property tax goes out the window, or why $4 or $5, $6 million worth of road work doesn't get done, or $20 million worth of, let's say $10 to $15 million worth of economic development payments that could fund a lot of things in the east end of the county can't be done. So it's more than just a narrow focus that we need to deal with. And I just want to make that clear. And again, none of us here are the enemy. We had a chance to zone solar completely out of the picture. Chris Gomer sat here when we started this a year and a half ago and said, if you don't want solar, then we can write the ordinance that way. Well, we all decided we were going to write an ordinance that was fair to the developers and fair to the citizens of DeKalb County. And after a 3 or 4 month process, we all decided that we'd accomplished that goal. I just think I wanted to make those points that things are not always necessarily the way they appear to be, and there's just been a lot of things said and done and whispered that aren't true, and that's enough.
Okay. Let's move on then to what we have to wrap up and
Okay.
pass my nap time.
So, let me see where I'm at. Okay, I have for the ARPA agreements, I have the Community Foundation, DeKalb County, that is the Trails Match monies that's going for the next level grant. So I have their completed agreement with the commissioners, so I need Bill to sign the agreement so that I can then send out their payment. So a motion.
Want a motion to pay who?
Community Foundation, DeKalb County, with the ARPA dollars.
Okay. And it's for our match of the trails?
Correct.
Yeah.
Match, trail match.
The Community Foundation.
They
DeKalb
hold
County.
the accounts for Auburn Waterloo Trail.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, yeah.
So you're paying the trail group's account at the community foundation, you're not necessarily paying,
We're not giving it to,
you're not giving money to the community
they're
foundation.
holding it is what I'm saying for the use of the trails.
Correct.
Yeah.
So moved.
Thanks, Todd.
Second.
A motion is second. Any additional comments from the commissioners or the public? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Aye. I don't understand. We got money for everything but roads. We got money for trails and our roads are a mess. But I will sign.
Yeah, we made that agreement
It's
prior.
part of,
though.
I was gonna say, it's
I
part
know,
of what
I
you guys
know.
approved before.
Yeah.
Andrew, the only other thing
But
I
I
had was
agree.
the vote center agreement.
Okay.
Is that the one we're still waiting on? A reply back from Holly? This is what,
Possibly, let's see. That might be. I think you emailed this to Holly.
Okay.
And I don't remember seeing any response back yet on
okay. So that we're gonna wait on. The other thing was, do I need to be setting a public hearing date for the petition to vacate, or am I in a holding zone right now?
So for the petition to vacate, what I'd like to do is just respond back to Donald Stuckey with similar language to what Jim McKenna did before on the petition to vacate. There's a process to go through.
Okay.
It's not as simple as, yes, that Donald was thinking it was. It's just a couple of steps to go through.
And if I remember right, the person, the patron has to actually request the public hearing, correct?
The who? The,
Like-
the person, yeah, and then they have to give
Whoever's
specific
asking.
notice to each of the neighboring landowners that are
Okay.
contiguous to it. If the commissioners can just, say, hey, that's fine, that's probably a standard thing I can respond to when an attorney would contact me with that information and say, here's how to do it. I think they talked to one of the commissioners about it and they said, contact the county attorney. So
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I
I'll try to get that letter out
didn't
then
need to do
too,
that.
quickly out to them. If it seems okay with the rest of you, so.
The only other thing I have is, the council and I believe you guys probably need to adopt certain meeting policies on how you're gonna hold your meetings. This has come down from state level. So I have these little handouts on how to run meetings and, that we got from NACO for you guys to review and come up with and, maybe suggest with Andrew how you want, do you want to adopt that we're going to follow Robert's rules? Do you want to adopt that, however you want your meetings set up? Do you want to adopt that the public can or cannot talk, things like that? This was pushed really heavily at my last training. And so I just got the brochures for everybody so we could start the conversation on it in the future. And that is all I have.
Susan's rules.
Susan's rule. No, that won't work.
We kind of found out Roger's rules are different than what we thought.
Mm-hmm.
Seemed like there's different rules for commissioners than there is for council president. Commissioner president as opposed to council president.
Are you there?
Anything else?
Two other bills that are going through Indianapolis I want to bring up real quick.
Yeah.
There's several more we'll talk about next time, but one is the Governor's Health Commission that we all had some concerns about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the governor's office has changed the ask on that, I think based on some good advice. So that, what they're proposing now is $120 million the first year 100 million of that goes to local health departments. 200 million, or 227 million the second year, 200 goes to local health departments. The important part of that is two things. Number one, they've changed it to an opt-in. So we have to agree to participate. If,
Have to.
no,
No.
we have the option to. We can opt in. It used to be where it was mandatory, and then it was opt out. Now it's opt in. If we would choose, and of course this hasn't passed yet, but this is what's going through. If we decide to not to opt in, as long as we're providing the core services, which we are, our basic health funding doesn't change at all then. We still keep everything we had. So way better.
Way better.
Way better setup
better.
than it was before.
Yeah.
The other one that I think is going to be interesting is Senator Holdman has introduced a bill to create a state and local tax review commission, which will review the entire tax structure, top to bottom. And one of the kind of background goals in that is to see if the state can get to no personal income tax over the next 5, 6, 8 years. They're also, of course, going to take a look at the business personal property tax. That's still rearing its ugly head, but all of the home rule organizations are being really, really adamant about there's got to be a reliable replacement revenue stream before that can go anywhere. Unfortunately, the regional chambers is still really pushing that in the Indiana Manufacturers Association, but again, a word to the local legislators or any of the other legislators is always helpful for that.
My personal opinion as far as eliminating a tax, it's the wrong tax to eliminate. We should eliminate all property taxes, personal and otherwise.
Agreed.
And replace it or add it into one of the other, or both of the other taxes that are more simple and more fair than property taxes. That's my opinion.
The argument is always, well, we can get a little here and a little here and a little here, and so if this one has a bad year, this one will pick it up. And what it is, okay, we're going to lower this tax, but we're going to raise this one. And then we raise this one, or, well, we'll lower this one if we raise, and we stair step them up. Sales tax started, there was no sales tax prior to what, 61 or 2?
Something like that.
Then when they put the highways in, hey, we're going to do 2%, and it's just going to be temporary. And then the schools said, wait, we need new schools. Well, let's keep that and give it to the schools instead of raising property tax. Well, then they raise property tax. Then they raise sales tax. Then they raise property tax. It never ends.
Never ends. Never ends.
But that's,
The
we
bad
got to
thing
control
about
what we
property
can control,
taxes
though. And Mike makes a point there that, you know, unless they replace our income with something,
There you go.
they
Right.
can't just take it away from us,
No.
you know?
Well, no,
Not in the days world anyway. Nobody's willing to cut that much.
Yeah.
That's 32% of our budget
Yeah. I
is
know it's
funded by
30-something,
that. And, you know, we just can't,
Can't take a 30% haircut unless we can find a way to save, but it's, I think we've cut about every corner we can. And still run the government. Provide service anyway.
Yeah. Anything else?
that's all.
Todd? Andrew? Susan?
No.
Bill? We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Well.
If I can figure out what I just did with it, I'll give it to you. Yeah, the one with real red lines on it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Oh my gosh, my back.
Uh-oh.
So it's in today's paper. That's an interesting.